gonna steal all side, ride me, baby. I ain't never gonna stop. Come on now, baby. Ride me straight to the top. Yeah, straight to the top.
Do 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 do. Goo 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 goo.
Yep, I'm on board. I wonder if anybody listening gets that.
No. Bad.
Is anybody listening? Is this thing on?
Yes. Bad ideas, good stories.
Number 24.
24. Shit, man. Time's flying.
That's a 2-4, baby.
Yeah. Bob and Doug Mackenzie.
Long weekend party time. Yeah, exactly. Well, give me a 2-4 stubbies.
Strange
Let's
brew.
do this thing.
Take off to the Great White North. Take off. For anybody that doesn't know, back in the day, there was a Canadian skit television show called SCTV, Second City Television Network, and one of the characters or one of the skits that they did on there was these two Canadian brothers, and it was Rick Moranis and I don't know the other guy, but Bob and Doug Mackenzie, and they just sat and drank stubby beers and talked shit about Dave Thomas, yes. And coo 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 coo. Yeah, that was there.
Strange Brew was an excellent movie, actually.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in years, yeah.
So it's somewhere.
It reminds me of all my uncles with the hockey and the Don Cherry and the wings and the, the rink burgers.
Pure Canadiana. Yes, right?
Yeah.
You don't know the joy of a rink burger. I don't even know if you're living life.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But yeah, I'm Dusty Rink Burger Deal. And
yeah.
This is
Pat Rink Fries.
Patty Cakes Pattenstein.
Pat. Don't blame me. My mom named me.
Yeah. And I'm just going to talk about it right now. We didn't plan this. Both showed up dressed almost exactly the same.
Yes,
and not our usual just black T-shirts and whatever. I mean, I'm talking. We got some golf shirts on.
Golf shirts, yeah.
I literally haven't worn one of these in over a year.
I wear them once in a while. It's kind of a throwback to that old like working class, the subculture, boots and braces kind of scene. But I wore this to a tattoo convention one time, and this big Hell's Angel was like, "What the fuck's with your shirt?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's a subculture thing. Don't worry about it." Yeah. I'm really wanting to be a proud boy. That's why. This is my goal.
Yeah, Mom always said I was a good boy. Now I want to be a proud boy.
Yes. Interestingly enough, Fred Perry that makes these shirts recently discontinued the brand or the sub brand that had the yellow wreath and the yellow striping because Proud Boys have adopted it as their uniform, so they didn't want to encourage them.
Sure. Oh, so it wasn't just golf shirts in general. It was that
specific brand,
one.
specific stripes, and specific colors.
Yeah, I'll see. And I think that's part of the reason why people get sucked into a lot of this shit too, right? It's fun.
It's a gimmick.
It's fun to make up your little uniform and make up your little signals. And at the latest Trump rally, there, a guy gave him the OK symbol behind him for the white supremacists.
Oh, I didn't see that.
In the way that you do if you're a white supremacist to send your signal to other white supremacists.
Yeah,
I guess.
They call it dog whistles. That's what they call that, right?
But this is a hand signal, I guess. This would be like, what the fuck's that called? When you're
flagging or
sign
language?
Sign language. It's a sign language dog whistle, I guess, with the OK.
There's been a few, like the Roman salute. That's a little dog whistle, and hardly anybody knows what that means. And but there's a few other ones like numbers 1488, 14 words, 88 being Heil Hitler. People, they hide that stuff in there. You can recognize a Nazi for that kind of shit.
Yeah, yeah, they think they're super clever too. Again, that's what I'm saying. That's the fun of it.
Well, the thing about those whack jobs and the white supremacists and white nationalists and ethno states and separatists and all the segregationists. They change their dog whistles very, very quickly, so they can't get caught up. Something they put out on Twitter was when they were talking about a politician or a journalist or somebody that they were discussing. If they put 3 parentheses around the name, it indicated that they were Jewish, and that gave it was like a secret little dog whistle, so the other white supremacists could follow them and they knew that they were talking to a Jewish person.
Sure.
And there's tons of them.
Wild.
Something as simple as the colored laces you're wearing or little tiny symbols. There's a few things that's funny. Watched for Halloween Midsummer. It's like a Euro pagan kind of horror movie. It's like a mystery horror movie. I really, really liked it because I'm interested in pre-colonial culture. And that Nordic, Swedish. It's about a group of guys that go off to Sweden to this one of their buddies he grew up on a commune, so they wanted to go visit the commune. And the commune is celebrating the Midsummer Festival, which they only do apparently every 90 years, and it's a big deal. And all kinds of crazy shit happens. I don't want to be a spoiler, but it's very heavily influenced by like the runic traditions of like Viking tradition and all of that. But they don't really talk about racism. It's just runes are part of what that culture was a part of, right? The Elder Futhark and all of that. And a lot of these things have become dog whistles for the white power scene. You know, like, and it's an easy way to say, oh, it's heritage, not hate. Well, yeah, it is for those people that really want to use it as heritage and not hate.
Yeah, that's actually your heritage. You want to explore it by all means. Yeah.
But, you know, if you're a Scottish guy and you're covered in runes, it just doesn't make sense to me because it's not my heritage, you know. I guess I'm a bit of a cultural tourist or social anthropologist being a tattoo guy. I get to know all about, like, the symbols of culture, right? And,
oh, sure. Everybody's bringing in a new one every week, probably. Gotta stay fresh.
Scottish has the thistles. Their specific creeds are like what is it? Like crests, family crests, or like a belt with a buckle wrapped around with something in there, and then like the slogan above it. Heraldry, you know, the shields.
Sure.
Celtic people, or the Celtics, usually have like a lot of interlocking knots, which also carried over. The Scottish have a lot of knot work, as do the Viking Nordic tradition. Odin apparently went on a trip and came back and realized the universe was interlocking knots. You know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so that became part of their.
Weird. I did not know that was that. Well, it's actually funny you mention that because I've got right on the back of my phone here. I'll just show you that. I don't know if you can see it on there. That's the house symbol for my family. So they predate coat of arms and that sort of thing.
Oh.
It would be like a more archaic version of that where you're just starting out. So you scribble that thing onto your house, or you scribble it onto your tools, or
So that's your family.
exactly. That's the family symbol. But it's even if I was just to put that on myself, I feel like people would be like, wait a minute, that looks a little bit, you know, it's got a little too many lines that go the right direction and the wrong direction. And
I'm past that.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
oh no, I'm sure I would just have to have that conversation. You know what I mean?
All the
as soon as
time.
you do that shit,
All
people
the
are like,
time.
"But what does that mean?" And you're like, "Oh well, it's my family house symbol." And oh geez, because you know what it looks like. I'm like, yeah, I know what it fucking looks like. It's on me, you know. But I guess get used to it, right? Like
See,
that was always
put-
my fucking thing when I was younger. Sorry, but when I was younger, when we were first getting into getting tattooed, my old man was always like, "Well, just be fucking ready for it." And what's that? He said, "A lifetime of fucking people staring at you."
That's
he says,
true.
"Every time you sit in a waiting room or you're sitting somewhere, everybody's gonna be fucking eyeballing you, and you're gonna have to fucking talk to people about it because they're gonna want to fucking know and know what you're into." And
That's not true for me.
it's yeah.
Nope. Everybody stares. Nobody talks.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they don't.
Oh, you get fucking people talking to you. It's just not those scenarios. You
think?
get the bad guys coming up to you in bad guy situations, thinking you're a bad guy. Sometimes
That's
I've
a good
seen
point.
It. It's not sitting in a waiting room and it's well lit and everybody's
bro.
like there with their kids. It's like we're in an alley and somebody's like, "Hey man, I got to talk to you. You know some guy around here?" And Pat's like, "Well, I do actually, but that's really unrelated to having to why we're in this alley at the moment."
Yeah, getting followed at Walmart or you know in the waiting room at the
You get
hospital.
your
The
attention.
gangbanger
Yeah,
guys
that's what
like,
I'm
hey,
saying.
what's up?
Right?
Yeah. When I was in Vegas, you know, back in the day, I had kind of what I would call a psycho preppy look. You know, I wore the Dickies shirts, the button-down shirts, and like kind of like khaki shorts, and you know,
Or like real suicide tendencies.
yeah, Chuck Taylor, but it wasn't it wasn't plaid. It was just
Sure.
like navy blue, you know,
Okay.
and I was at a hotel in Las Vegas, and this straight up like Cholo Votto was like gunning me off in the room, and you know I get it because I covered in black and gray tattoos. I look like that, you know, and so he's probably thinking.
Could be self-preservation for him. Sorry.
Right? Well, and I probably had a short cropped haircut, so he's probably thinking I'm repping some like Aryan gang. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Why
And,
do I know that guy?
Who's that guy? And where's he from? And you're like, but it wasn't a nice look.
Yeah,
It was
I
like,
keep
who
seeing
the
it
fuck
everywhere.
are you? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And he was kind of like a shaved head, white t-shirt, khaki short version of like black and gray tattoos. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You run into problems with the wrong stuff in the wrong area.
But sometimes you just blend in.
Well, you know, yeah, sometimes you try to blend in and you don't know the lay of the land.
Yep.
There's a story that I won't mention names, but a local individual had a support ring for a specific motorcycle club and was not aware that when you go to Bike Week in Las Vegas, the entire city segregates. The Mongols and the Hells Angels make an agreement that you go this area of the city, that's our space. This area of the city is your space. That's that, right? Well, Buddy didn't know that, and he just went down to the Harley Cafe with his support ring on, not having a clue that during Bike Week that like, yeah, this is the Mongols area. So a bunch of Mongols came up and they said, "What the fuck?" And he had to start making phone calls back to Canada, like, "Oh, hey, I'm wearing this stuff." They're like, "What? Why? Why are you wearing this stuff in the wrong area of town? We can't even call our buddies to roll in and to just take the fucking ring off. I don't know, and leave.
Right.
There you go. That's
How'd they get to a phone call even?
Right.
You know what I mean? If you're just a, I like these guys kind of guy.
They're
Hey,
my friends.
It's a cool team. I like to support them in some way. Hey, you got to take that off, or I'm going to cut your goddamn arms off.
Yeah.
Oh well, here you go. Clink clink. It's on the tray at the McDonald's right now.
Well, it's kind of interesting in some communities when that's the only underground game in town, it becomes a brand name for badasses.
Sure.
To say that I'm supporting the bad guys or
Yeah.
the outlaws. But when you're in a place where there's opposing teams of outlaw, wearing a cool blue bandana in your back pocket, you know, in the wrong neighborhood may not be the smartest move to make. You know,
I get you literally fisted.
Yeah, right. You remember?
You flagging
That's a red bandana. Yeah.
Oh, that was once
Yeah.
again. Hey, I'd be in a whole world of trouble.
I thought I was getting fisted.
Yeah. That was actually one of our favorite phrases for if somebody was like, if you thought somebody was taking the piss out of you in high school, was, "Are you fist fucking me?" and you'd put different emphasis on different parts of it. Are you fist fucking me?
Are you fist fucking me?
Exactly. There you go. Yeah. De Niro.
You fist fucking?
Yeah. It was really the taxi cab of "Are you fucking around?" Taxi cab, taxi driver.
Yeah.
Jesus, goddamn
Taxi
Christ.
driver. Yeah,
Spit
yeah.
it out.
Well, hopefully you would know who was fist fucking you and that it was happening. So it's not. I'm saying from experience, it's not a subtle art. It's actually a pretty intense experience for those people receiving. Anyways, and sometimes for those people doing. You know,
Well, I
depends.
mean, I think that's why the phrase carries so much weight when
Fist
you use it in
fucking.
a gradual conversation. It's like, "Are you fucking around? Are you pulling my leg? Are you blowing smoke at my ass?" No, it's not smoke. It's an entire fist.
Well, I went to a lecture by a gay leatherman in Calgary one time on the SM community, and he pointed out that they're pretty sure culturally that fisting is like the only fetish that's been documented as being beginning in the 20th century. It didn't really happen, you know, in other cultures. I guess they just didn't spend that much time down there, especially, you know.
I don't know, man. Like, you talking
Hole?
Caligula time? People
Yeah,
are trying
well,
to get like
yeah,
up to an elbow in somebody.
But there's no documentation, I guess, is what he was saying.
Fair
It's
enough.
like,
There wasn't any like fucking
They got ancient-
statues of anybody like up to the elbow in David. Hey,
Fuck, you should see some of the photos I have saved. I have this one, I made a meme. It says, "Thank you for your input." The guy's fucking up to his elbow. You can go pretty deep into there, you know?
Well, I don't know about you. I don't know what you're throwing that around.
You can go deep,
Anyone
Dustin.
can, yeah.
Yeah.
The fucking abilities of the human body. We were just talking about this with the Olympics.
Yes,
Hey,
yes, yeah.
I was like, every 2 years, I was just thinking about this. I'm like, every 2 years, it's like there's another fucking example.
Winter and summer,
summer,
winter-
right?
okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
example of like what the human body can do. Like in the wintertime, that long distance ski jumping. How the fuck do you fly further through the air without a fucking set of wings on you?
And not die.
Exactly. Like that's some real, and it's just planks. It's
Gravity's
planks and a jump.
motherfucker.
Yeah.
Gravity.
So yeah, like it's interesting that that's what we keep seeing every couple of years, and that I just think in my head a lot of times when I talk to people about like Olympics and shit, they're like, "Oh fuck, can you imagine being able to run that faster or lift that much or whatever?" Then it's like, yeah, but I mean, why would you try that hard just for once and then you don't ever get paid? And it's like, but yeah, we kind of do sort of that though, you know.
Well, it makes me wonder if there's
like life
people,
easier.
people working on an Olympic level that are just doing it casually.
Oh,
You know what I mean? That like, well, okay, running like a Kenyan.
Yeah.
You know, the guys in Kenya that have to go from village to village.
Sure.
So marathons are just life,
Yeah.
right? And or you know, the guys that are just in the powerlifting gym. Like, there's this one guy, West Coast Barbell. His entire deal is like, I don't care how much steroids you take.
Yeah.
I don't care what you use a pre-workout. Do cocaine off the fucking thing. We're here to get numbers. And
How much can you
yeah,
lift?
let's get heavy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I bet there's people lifting Olympic weights in there or Olympic level weights, but they're
Sure.
just like juiced to the
Sure.
max.
Oh,
right?
I never thought of that even. There's people even surpassing that shit because there's no constraints on them because they don't in the competitive world they're in where maybe there's not as many rules or it's just not competitive and they're like, I just lift like you say, much heavy shit as I possibly can. What weight class you in? Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, I think about that a lot. Like even like let's say pro fighters or fighters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're top level athletes, and you can't take that away from them. But you go down to the bar down the street, and there's that guy who's been in and out of jail who could knock the fuck out of them, you know? And like you give him a Kimbo Slice, for example, you know, he kind of sucked at MMA, but like as a backyard boxer, a backyard like. It's how a guy eats.
Yeah.
How a ninja eats.
Yeah.
You know, that he's just a different level, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. You ever see the video of Mike Tyson at his junior Olympic fight?
Maybe 16.
I think so. He's just a kid.
Yeah.
And he just destroyed. The other guy thinks he's going in for some point fighting.
Yeah,
You know, like, oh, we're gonna
Yeah.
box, do our rounds,
Yeah.
get the points, the judges, and he's like, I'm gonna knock this kid the fuck out.
I'm gonna hit you
And
as
it-
hard as humanly possible.
Oh, he just destroyed that dude.
Yeah. No, I was watching another one today. Okay, this wouldn't have been the same video because I can picture the one you're talking about now. This is a different one. It was like the state championships or whatever it was. He was 16 years old. They didn't say how old the other guy was, and I looked like a full grown man to me. But then again, Mike Tyson was fucking jacked when he was 16 and beat the brakes off this guy. Like headgear on, knocked him out.
Yeah, I think that might have been the same one. Either way, and he
But,
just
yeah.
wasn't prepared.
No.
Well, you know what's funny? Like, we go to the gym, B and I train, and she always wants me to try out new stuff, and she finds these crazy, you know, workouts and combination. You know, why don't you do the battle ropes, and then burpees, and then your jumping jacks, and then you do some weights, and you do that all over again. I'm like, well, I'm not a pro athlete. I'm just a guy trying to breathe, get his heart rate up, you know, get his lungs working, you know, maybe get a little stronger, but I'm not trying to be a pro athlete. When I was 17 years old, I went to Canada Games for fencing. I was the saber captain, and we were running 6 kilometers in the morning, training till noon, lunch, train till 4 p.m., 6 kilometers, supper, cry yourself to sleep, basically, because you're like so jammed up.
Right.
And that was the closest I ever became to Joe athlete. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I imagine you would know from snowboarding the intensity that those guys need to get to that level, right?
Oh fuck. Yeah. Right. I almost feel like I could live 3 lifetimes and never put in the work it would take to get to the fucking Olympics or some shit like that level. Like even just top pros.
Is skateboarding Olympic yet?
They had an Olympics a couple of years ago. Yeah, it's been there
I'm
for a
not sure.
minute now. Yeah, I know they had it as like a test thing in like Atlanta, I think, and then and then I think they got some shit going on there.
'Cause you
It's
played-
kind of lukewarm in the community though.
Yeah,
It's
I
not like-
imagine.
it's not like I mean it's the same kind of people that are like stoked on seeing the X Games and shit every year. You know,
cheerleading,
like-
you know, Olympic
yeah, I mean it's
cheerleading.
good. It's nice to see it on an international stage, but a lot of the times the competition isn't what a lot of skaters really like. You know, like it's
Yeah.
the stuff that looks good on TV, and then you're like, well, okay, but that's great. Okay, you did a 1200, cool. I'm never going to see that ever in any of my experience when I'm out skating. You know, like it gets so it's almost not even what you do anymore.
It's removed from
It's
real
exactly.
life.
It's so beyond like what a lot of that shit. Because and again, the scale, like these mega pipes and shit like that. Like even Olympic
really?
snowboarding, they started making the half pipes just bigger and bigger and bigger because
So you can
they
get
can
more
handle
air
it. They're
and,
like,
like-
yeah, exactly. If you got a small pipe, you can only go so big. Or you're going to start landing out of it or landing flat. Whereas if you got this thing that's the size of a fucking apartment building, well, you got all this landing and you can really. And so guys are going bigger, and girls for that matter. Like I remember watching a snowboard contest on TV, and I remember taping it on VHS. This is like 92 or 93 because I was just like, holy fuck, snowboarding's on TV, and I was taping it off the fucking TV, and it was a contest out in Whistler, and it was a hand dug half pipe, just like a natural half pipe that was there that they'd cut out, and it was all slushy and beat to shit. And I remember what the fuck was his name now? He was like one of the only guys who could do a fucking McTwist, and he did like 5 of them all in a fucking row during his run. And the girl who won could do a 540. Which is
It's impressive to me. I can't do fuck
but
all.
I mean,
but-
even on a half pipe though, that's almost basically just a 360 because you almost just do a 180 going up and coming down. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So it's
yeah,
basically
okay.
you could do a 360 on a half pipe wall, and you could win the women's contest that year.
Hmm.
And now it's everybody's on a similar level. You know, there's girls doing fucking 1080s and.
Well,
Yeah,
now
I don't
there's-
even know. I can't even. It's gymnastics on snow. It doesn't even
Yeah,
seem like anything to
yeah.
me. I almost can't enjoy. Oh, I honestly, I haven't watched competitive snowboarding in years because even the terrain park stuff. It's like out of a fucking video game.
Yeah, that's
You
what
know
I was
Like,
gonna
nothing
say.
seems realistic to me about it.
Well, fuck, you play these video games, and it's like, this is totally not realistic. But
Yeah.
then you see people in real life
Yeah.
at the real life competitions, and you're like, that guy just pulled something
Yeah, a
off.
human being. A
Yeah.
human being just did that.
Yeah.
And again, it's just the time and effort they put into that shit, right? So again, never getting to that level is one thing, but like, I can still get pretty good. You know what I mean? There's still other stuff I could do. I just got to keep fucking working on it. I was bitching this last week here because I'm like, I have pretty much fatter than I've been in about 10 years. You know what I mean? And I don't. That doesn't even bother me so much. It's just my loss of flexibility really fucking drives me nuts. And so that's some shit I got to work on. I think it's gonna be baby steps and just try and get as fucking flexible as a guy can again. And
Start with yoga.
that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. You know, like get a regiment and start doing that shit every day. I just started today, so I'm
Yeah,
excited.
good,
But it makes me
good.
feel better already. But it's fucking I got to keep it that shit. But that's why the competitive aspect of it's nice because when you've got a date to do something and you've got timelines and you've got I usually go here to do this thing 3 times a week with these other people that all kind of depend on me. That fucking helps keep me on track for that shit a lot better. But then again, it becomes another thing that is like eating up a lot of my time and
Yeah, it depends on how
attention.
much you want to prioritize
That's
it.
it,
like,
right? It's fourth or fifth right now on the list for me.
Yeah,
things
you gotta
I
figure
wanna
that
be
out.
Spending my time doing.
See, and it's funny, when I go to the gym, I've got 4 areas that I try to work, and like which none should be more important than the others, but obviously just my personality, the ones that are easiest or the ones that I gravitate to, I do the most, and the ones I don't like, I let slide. I've got like is strength, balance, flexibility, and endurance. This is how I look at it, right? So strength, obviously lifting heavier. Balance, one leg, 2 legs, bending over. Yoga is good. Some yoga asanas are good for that. Obviously flexibility yoga, but that endurance game, that's like the long, like marathon running, or doing a light kettlebell for a half hour straight. I fucking hate that shit.
That's a grind.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, and I was just gonna say, I think that's what lots of people they do that, because it is easy to go and do biceps or go and slam fucking machinery around and stuff. And it's not easy, but it's like it's fun because you kind of want to do it.
Exactly.
Any shit you got to do for more than 15 or 20 minutes in a row with a steady, and if it's taxing in any way, that's kind of a wall for a lot of people. You know, like you getting that far, you're like fuck, and because. Again, I'm never like the most cardiovascularly fit person in the fucking gym ever, but there's been lots of times where I go to the gym with people and like I'm outrunning them, even though I'm fucking 70 or 80 pounds heavier.
Your conditioning can be better. It doesn't matter about your body weight.
Well, and
You're
I've
just
practiced that.
conditioned for
I've
it.
worked on that. Like when I was getting ready to fight, like I remember the one day it was probably like at the peak of my being able to run well, and it was indoors on a treadmill, but I still did like 8 kilometers in an hour.
Oh.
And I was like, fuck, I could do that, And I mean, I didn't do it consistently and all the time, but I could probably do 6,
That's
and like. For a guy who's at the
Well,
time
you're
I'd been
running
walking
8 kilometers
around
an hour,
215 or
4 an
220
hour.
pounds, you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Yes, and that was it, right? It wasn't just do it for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. It was a fucking hour,
Yeah.
And even like doing boxing rounds and stuff, keeping your hands up for 10 fucking rounds and just doing rounds on a bag burns you the fuck out.
Sparring is a
Burns you the
super
fuck
good
out.
cardio.
Well, sparring's
bag
even
work,
worse
yeah.
because then your anxiety and everything gets into it, and
rolling.
your breathing fucks up, and you don't pay attention. All of a sudden, you haven't breathed for 30 seconds, and the guy hits you, and so doing that kind of stuff, I think it's again, you'd never get an incredible muscular looking really fit kind of shit, but you'll
Be
see dudes in
aesthetic.
boxing gyms who can just hammer fucking speed bags and just put rounds and rounds and rounds on bags and look like piles of shit, but because they've developed the cardio and the technique, so they can keep moving fluid and smooth, they don't get tight. That's a lot of that too. Like if you're tight when you're trying to run, right? Yeah.
I rolled with one of Dave's guys one time, and he was like a bodybuilder, and like he looked like a bunch of balls, like biceps, shoulders, traps, chest, everything was just like big guy.
You wanted to draw him, I get it.
Yeah, I did. It's very
Let
easy.
me draw you.
Balls on his
Yeah,
chest.
yeah.
Anyways, and when we started rolling, he gassed.
Yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
because he just wasn't used to actually using that. He wasn't used to fighting against weird angles. You know, he might be able to isolate, a curl or a pec deck, but when it came to actually pushing somebody off for more than just like 10 sets or 10 reps, I could do this 5 times. Now I'm done, right?
Yep.
So that's kind of a weird one. But then you look at like those guys that are like serious fighters, and they're thin and live, and they can cut weight, and like they're good. They're sharp. They're sharp and fast. You never. I always underestimate. Like we've got a couple pro MMA guys that come to the tattoo shop, and they just look like little dudes.
Yep.
But I wouldn't tangle with any of them.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, some of the best guys I know you'd never know it for just looking at them in a t-shirt walking down the street, But then there's some dudes, and again, you do see it at the professional level too, where like the big muscly dudes, it seems like shit, they're going to tear that guy apart. That Israel Adesanya and Paulo Costa just fought a couple weeks ago, and Costa's as juiced as it gets. Dude's got like an 8-pack or a 12-pack, and like he looks like a statue of somebody, He looks like a video game character, and you cheated. And Adesanya looks scrawny compared to him, and he's still a big dude, right? And then they fight, and he beats him like a 10-day hard-on. You know what I mean?
Like a 10-day hard-on.
Yeah, right?
Well, if it lasts more than 4 hours, we'll call it dog.
Yeah.
But,
Call it Israel Adesanya. He'll beat the shit out of it for you.
well, who's at Fedor?
Yep.
He is definitely not the most
Right.
athletic-looking person.
Never come into a fight with a fucking six-pack.
No,
I've
he
never
will.
thought that I've ever seen.
That's almost like an American attitude, though.
That's
about
true. I
fitness,
guess
you
that
know?
does. I'm just saying, that when I see guys like that, you're like, oh, they're in shape, But there's lots of dudes who spent their fighting careers with like a little bit, of a fucking
punch.
a little bit of a tire even, right?
Yep.
And it's never beneficial when you're trying to cut weight, right? If you're trying to be in the smallest weight class you can, carrying around even 6 extra pounds on your gut is not helping you. That keeps you out of a weight class where you might have a 2 or 3 inch reach advantage all of a sudden, and
Yeah.
maybe a 10 or 15 pound weight advantage when you rehydrate.
Well-
if you get somebody who's naturally fighting in that weight class, right?
Hanging around Way of the Dragon, I saw a lot of guys cutting weight to make fight weight,
Yeah.
right? And I never understood that. You know, I think you should have to weigh or fight at your walking weight. You know,
Maybe
that
ideal, right?
why would you cut weight?
Yeah.
I remember that guy you fought. You know, he looked like a tall, kind of thin guy at weigh-in, and the next day I'm like, who the fuck brought the giant? They replaced the two men, you know? Like, I don't know how
You pull the old switcheroo on you here, Dusty?
Yeah, he got his twin to
Yeah.
come out here.
Yeah,
That
that's
guy's
my-
been eating,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah, the one they've been keeping in the basement and poking with sticks and feeding steak. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they look like two different dudes because he put on all that extra water weight. He must have done a crazy cut.
Well, I remember, right after the weigh-in, like, he was just, like, pounding Pedialyte, like, trying to get his electrolytes and shit back up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was cruising through the fruit tray just because it was there. You know, I came in, like, 6 pounds under. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, fuck, I'll eat some of this. Who
That
gives a
was your
shit?
walking weight at the time. You
Like,
lost
I didn't-
a lot.
I
Yeah.
didn't cut much for that. No, I mean, I tried to eat better that week, but that was it. I didn't cut a bunch of water. Well, and that's the crazy thing about it, right? So even the size I was, if I wanted to, like, make that something I even wanted to do to a semi-professional level, if I wanted to get 10 fights under my belt, say, I'd have to go down to like 170 pounds.
Yep.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? I'm too fucking short.
160,
When you're fighting at
170.
205 and everybody you're going to fight is over 6 feet tall.
Yep.
There's not going to be a guy 5'9" or 5'10", a rare. And if he is, he looks like he's fucking 300 pounds full of no neck and fucking Mexican supplements.
Oh
as
yeah,
Joe Rogan would
those
say.
big time like heavyweights, they're nuts. They're
Yeah,
nuts.
guys will cut down to that, right? So if I wanted, and can you imagine the 170 pound me? That's literally 100 pounds less than what I am right now.
Okay, yeah.
If I wanted to be an athlete, you know what I
Yes.
mean?
No.
At that level. But then again, to just be comfortable doing it, I've done it at every weight from just about 300 pounds down to 200 pounds.
Yep.
You know, and I mean, I was a lot more comfortable near 200 doing jiu-jitsu and shit than I was at 280, getting gassed out real fucking easy, but could still do the thing. You know what I mean?
On top, I've done lots of different martial arts, but on top of just being a heavy guy and having to roll with the heavy guys, because of my gut, when I get stacked, I get positional asphyxia. It
Fucking
pushes
right, man.
all the air out of my lungs, and
Yep.
that's a huge problem when you're. It's good if you can like outweigh somebody and get on top of them, or maybe use your core strength to get them off of you. But if they end up stacking you,
Yeah.
stacking me,
Yeah.
I'm fucked.
Yeah.
You know. And
Yeah, if you can stuff my chin into my chest or the back of my head in the ground, I'm probably gonna tap because that's they call it a can opener when they pull it down like that.
Okay.
But if you can stack me like that, like I can't fucking breathe for sure, and
Yeah.
I gotta either scramble quick and get out or be like, well, let's start over.
Yeah.
Give you that tap, buddy boy, you did it. And I mean, that's not good because I mean you're actually competing against someone who's in some sort of shape. Well, that's not gonna work on them. So then you're not being a good training partner at that point. You know what I mean? I'm like, you should roll with someone else. If you're dominating me like this at this point, you got to get with somebody else.
Yep. I had one guy who would tap whenever I'd get grapevine with my ankles.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
what are you doing here?
Yeah,
You know,
that's-
really.
You gotta,
you know.
yeah, right. You gotta figure that out.
This
yeah.
is basic
Yeah.
like position. I haven't even done anything. You're like, oh, I get it. Tap fast, tap early, so you don't get injured. But
Yeah.
like, you know,
You gotta let it hurt sometimes though,
yeah.
because else
It's-
you know it works.
Well,
right?
it's strange because now my back's jammed up. I've got like my list of injuries from martial arts. My eye's been scraped. My wrists have been jammed up. Dislocated shoulder.
Sorry,
like
I was just picturing you with that eye patch on.
yeah, all right. Knees been jammed out. 2 dislocated ankles. You know, and that one knee's been jammed out by 2 different people that. We're just doing little uncontrolled shit. One guy shoved a stick and just pushed my kneecap out of place, and that one
Uncomfortable.
that was pretty
Oh, that makes
nasty.
me uncomfortable.
And another guy during friendly rolling decided to heel hook me.
Oh, yeah.
Who
yeah.
the fuck is that?
Yeah.
You know, I
yeah,
got
a lot of
so
lower
mad.
leg submissions aren't even allowed in competition in jiu-jitsu.
Oh,
you know?
really? Yeah, yeah.
Well, because it's you can do them in ways that you can definitely do permanent damage,
Yeah.
tear somebody's ACL, MCL in a contest that no one's getting paid for, right? Like,
Yeah.
you might wrestle 3 times this weekend and get a medal or some shit.
This goes back to the martial arts I trained because I trained self-defense for a long time, and I wanted to learn real functional war arts, combat arts, right? And old school jujitsu, being jitsu, is a war art. You know, it's not judo, which is a way of Jew. You know,
Sure.
the Jew way. No, no, it's like jujitsu was made so a samurai's coming at you in the field,
Yeah.
and you can avoid his sword. You can take that arm and destroy that arm. You can grab that ankle and break his bones.
Yeah.
It's a bone breaking art, right?
Sure.
And it got modified for sport application to a tap as opposed to destroying individuals. But
Yeah.
people forget all the time that martial arts were meant to destroy people, or just kill them. You know, like a lot of these arts were meant to stop you from being you anymore. You know, we are going to war and I'm going to win, which is a very interesting element where a lot of these arts came from Buddhist countries. And it was against the Buddhist tradition to teach people without a certain level of ethics these arts, because they were afraid basically what's happening in MMA would happen. It would turn into a competition that these guys learn these like deadly techniques and they're out there on the street just dismantling people, you know, getting a bar fight because they're all drunk with no basic ethics, and there you go.
Use it to dominate people that don't have those techniques.
It's like giving a bully a gun.
Yeah.
At least that's how they looked at it, right? The monks would train this shit.
Well, and I think that's why it's always pushed so hard, the respect, and even not even just respect to like your teacher or sensei, but like even the dojo, you know, taking your shoes off when you come in and bowing when you enter the surface area of what you do your work on, and I think all that's designed for that, right?
To be honest, like, and I've talked to Dave about it. I wish he could have come today, but that's been lost in the contemporary mixed martial art jock kind of culture. Those guys that once played hockey and would just fucking brutalize people on the weekend from their pickup trucks, now they're, instead of playing hockey, they just get into fighting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's a different attitude. I was teaching my guys Cali one time and like stick fighting, you know, basic, because as you get older, you go towards the gentler arts, right? And one of the MMA coaches came up behind me and put me in a rear naked choke and tried to punk me in front of my class. I had to roll with him right there on the spot, and otherwise I was going to lose face. Who fucking does that?
Right?
You know, who does that? That's such disrespect in the traditional martial arts. But in an MMA gym, that's fucking common, you know? You make fun of the guy who's pudgy. You make fun of the guy whose art you think sucks. Oh, those guys are fake martial artists over there. And it's like this weird kind of like egotistical attitude.
You'd never see that in a karate class. You know what I mean? The sensei's go, keep mocking the kid with the red hair. It's no big deal.
Yeah, and that's kind of a weird one. And
but you know, that's not everywhere. I mean, there are still some groups that do, you know, keep an art to it. You know, especially if it's jiu-jitsu. Like I do see that a lot in jiu-jitsu, where there's still lots of the, you know, respect for the area. Yes, exactly. There's more of that. Whereas again, with if you come from like kind of a wrestling sport kind of background, there a lot of that is, you know, get your ass up there, get warmed up, get ready to go. You know what I mean? We're not here to pay homage to the gym. You might have a little ceremony, you do a ritual, and everybody points at the thing on the fucking wall or whatever, because that's your club's thing. But it's not like a jiu-jitsu or a karate kind of fucking thing.
See, how long has it been since this is my coach, this is their coach, this is the guy that created the system? There's like a lineage, and we respect that lineage. And I think this is part of it, where a lot of guys train MMA to be the tough guy, or to be the winner in an altercation, versus I need to keep myself safe. Yeah. I'm never going to start shit.
Some of the best in the world, though, did start like that. You know, you look at lots of these guys, their backstory. You know, why'd you get into MMA and martial arts in the first place? George St. Pierre. Yeah. Kids bullied me. Kids beat the shit out of me.
He was a karate guy for a long time.
Kokushin or whatever the fuck it is, like hard style, and he got into that shit because, I mean, kids beat the fuck out of him when he was a kid, and that's I almost guarantee every one of those dudes, they got a little bit of bully in them. It's all because they've been bullied, right?
But they're coming. Oh, you think that?
Yeah. For sure. Lots of these fucking dudes, they grew up. They were the smallest one. Even the Gracies. I mean, that's why fucking Hoist had to be such a bad fucking man, because he was the smallest, weakest one. If they send out any of his brothers to go and compete, everybody go, oh, well, I mean, you got this big tough guy. Of course, he's a big dude. So they
that's why they put him in those first UFCs.
They send out the little skinny guy,
the frail guy who all of a sudden just walks through everybody. Yeah. Well, he didn't really walk through.
Could take a licking.
Half hour of holding on to somebody, and then finally they
Dan Severn, I think he was fighting. It was like, he was going to pull his arm off or some shit, and there's just like, he was going to let it happen, Yeah.
There's a lot to be said, but that's just it. Like the idea of like the alpha male versus the self-defense. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like Wing Chun Kung Fu, very center, very hard, very like driving into people. Was designed by a nun to protect herself from larger attackers.
It was like a offensive defense.
Yes, it was a yin and yang. Yeah. So everyone's got an attack and a defense, right, at the same time.
Yes, right, exactly. And I like that, because I was watching some highlights from, I don't know if it was the fights last weekend, but it was the slow motion highlights, and seeing all these different guys fight. And then Robert Whitaker, I don't know if you follow him, he used to be middleweight champ for a bit. I think real tough guy, Bobby Knuckles they call him, and can fucking scrap. And I never really knew what he was doing differently than other guys, because it seemed like a lot of times he just come out to bang, and he had technique, but he'd throw stuff weird, and he could really take a beating. You know, that's definitely part of it. But then I started seeing when he would throw in slow motion, all these other guys, like if they're throwing a 1-2, like the jab is a setup, and some it would just barely touch the guy maybe, or you just get a little snap, and then they come hard with that second one, right? Whereas with Whitaker, every fucking punch he threw, even if it was a setup punch, was to decapitate you. Like a jab was like a straight. Yes, every single one had fucking intent, and he would do that lots where he would intercept their weapon. You're going to kick me? No, I'm going to fucking kick you. You're going to punch me? No, I'm going to punch you. But I'm not going to hit it with a setup. I'm going to set you up with something hard and then hit you with this one. And I mean, it does put you in danger, but like it made so... If this other guy's trying to even throw a kick, well, he might get his leg smashed mid-swing where it's not comfortable for him and hit twice. You know what I mean? When you thought you were the one being offensive, he's going to be defensive by destroying your leg and then coming through
your weapons
and hitting you hard. Yeah, and I never really noticed that about him fighting until I seen it in slow motion. And I was kind of like, I think that's one of the things he does well that not everybody else does.
It's funny, my brother had this, he's got a few criteria on how to pick a winner in an MMA fight. And if he has a mohawk or a bunch of tattoos, he's like, don't go for that guy.
Yeah, exactly. Bet the fuck on the other guy.
If he's Brazilian, vote for him or bet on him. You know, there's a few little things that he does. I won't go through his full list because it does get a little racist here and there. But
very sexual, two-thirds of the way through.
Take a look how he fills out the shorts, you know. And
then Brian Ortega a couple weekends ago, he had a big fight and he had this massive cup on. Like massive,
like a codpiece.
Like you ever see Shoney Carter fight, Mr. International? He had a very famous spinning back fist knockout of what the fuck's his name there, Matt Serra, the New York jiu-jitsu guy, tough guy too, but yeah, he had a very famous spinning back fist knockout of him, and he used to wear these really, really, really fucking small shorts, like as small shorts as you could get, and he had this enormous metal Muay Thai cup that he would wear all the time. Like, it was comical, but he would wear it, and I've even seen guys where they would, because I mean, with the cup material, I don't know if they've got any rules on that anymore, because I mean, you're not supposed to hit it anyway, so it could be made out of fucking anything. It shouldn't matter, right? As long as it protects you. Well, guys would have these big metal Muay Thai cups, and then they would wear them in, like, when you're doing jiu-jitsu or MMA, and then use it as a weapon. Like, you'd have this big hard cup, and if you get north and south and somebody get it in their eye, you know what I mean? Just fucking drive in there, it would hurt like all hell, right?
Well, I've heard about, like, shoving your chin in the eye socket. And
that's all, and that's all fair play right there. The chin, the forehead, your forehead's a tool in jiu-jitsu and wrestling. Like, that's another hand. If you can control somebody's head or into their chest and help control their body and shit.
Well, that's chintzy fighting. It's not necessarily... I think
it's not clean.
It's not clean.
Yep.
You know who's really good at the chintzy fighting is Elmer Waterhen.
Oh yeah, Elmer Waterhen too, and learned some from Dave Mott. Yeah. There's a combination of fucking
Elmer. Well, like, hey, let me show you something. Hey, before you guys leave, I know you're done. Let me show you something. I want to try something out.
The classic, let me show you
something. I pissed myself with that guy one time. He's like, no, let me show you something. And I'm like, fuck, dude, you just injure me every time.
I'm pissed. Yeah, I got pissed.
Yeah, I thought I was suffocating. I started doing the fish. You know, he wasn't listening to my tap.
Yeah,
you know,
it's not that bad. It doesn't hurt that bad. Yeah, he was good. He was good with leg kicks for that.
Yeah.
Take some kicks for a bit here.
Well, one time when we were training at Nemesis before we got to Way of the Dragon, Clint McLaughlin was our kickboxing coach, and Elmer came down. He's like, well, you want to spar a little with Elmer? And I thought we were going to roll, but he's like, no, kickboxing. I'm like, oh, all right. And Elmer's like, well, the problem is the guys can't really keep up with me. And I'm like, oh, I probably won't, but okay, let's do this. So he let me give her for about 2 rounds. You know, he just kind of backed up. And then he started sniping me in the nose and sniping me in the eye, and he was just picking off because like my guard was dropping, you know, and then he just started opening up because he intentionally didn't do shit to me for 2 rounds. Let me, the chubby guy, get all fucking gassed because get it out of your system. Get it out of your system.
And nerves, right? He knows you're going to be the nervous one. He's not. That's his world.
Oh, I wasn't nervous. I was just because to me I was playing. Playing. We're not like trying to win.
I sparred with Elmer. I was always nervous.
Really?
Well, I knew we weren't fucking. I knew he was going to try and knock me out at one point. He dropped me from body shots more than a few times.
See, I never think that people are actually going in maliciously. And I guess that's the other traditional martial art kung fu attitude.
Sure.
Do you want to play? Because we're just going to play a bit, you know, and we're going to, do this. Oh, we're playing a little harder? Okay. You know, it's never going in with animosity against each other. And maybe MMA is a bit different than that. And maybe that's part of that.
Because I know there's no play to it. Like, even if he doesn't mean to, every kick is going to be, like, it doesn't make sense for him to practice at 25%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense for him to throw and barely touch me. You know what I mean? He's got to make contact. And I have to feel that to learn from that, right? But yeah, that always made me uncomfortable because I know what that is. It's going to fucking hurt. I'm going to do, even do well, you still hurt, right? You know what I mean? Like, I got better from that. Yeah, he kicked you right in the head, and you learned from getting kicked in the head.
Well, Harley Flanagan, from the Cro-Mags, he's a top student and instructor in New York City for Renzo Gracie. And he's... He had a quote, you jiu-jitsu, you either win or you learn.
Yes, yeah,
and
right.
I like that, you know. But jiu-jitsu isn't my stuff. I'm too old. My joints get. I value my mobility.
And I think it's more suitable for someone who's older. You just
I've
have to roll
played.
at the right level.
Oh well,
Just don't
man.
roll
I
dickies. Don't
played.
roll
I
guys who
get
wanna
dropped
roll
on my
hard.
spine. I don't walk right for a week.
Well, see, but
My
then you
joints
shouldn't be
get
doing
fucked
takedowns.
up.
Like, I mean, that's the nice thing about jiu-jitsu. It's absolutely adjustable. It's absolutely adjustable.
It's absolutely adjustable with the right partner
Yes,
and
it-
the right. But if you
if
get
you're-
dumped
if you're-
in a group and
Yep.
he's like, "Hey, you're going with
And
moron
it's a-
head over
and
here,"
it's a sport thing, and that some guys want to compete and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah, no, that's going to be tough. But again, it's something that you can control. And if both of you are working, like even with kickboxing, it's tough to just not. Oh, sorry, I let that one slip. Sorry, I whacked you with that elbow. You should, you didn't block that knee properly, and then you end up eating one. It's really hard to dislocate someone's arm if you both know how to play when you're doing jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? It's hard.
When you're
to get,
going in as a beginner, you're up against some fucking moron
Yeah,
that
well, that's
doesn't
what I'm
know his
saying,
own
right?
strength, doesn't understand gravity,
Yep.
doesn't understand what happens when he dumps all of his own
Yep.
body weight
Sure.
onto a joint lock,
Yep.
and you end up fucked up because you got paired with some dickhead who doesn't know his own fucking.
But here's the
limit.
thing, though: the basis of that art is control. You know what I mean? The other ones are not. You don't want to control someone with kickboxing. You want to inflict damage. You want to hit them with these things, right? So at the basis of it, you're already starting from a place where your intention is to do damage. Whereas if you do jujitsu and you don't want to hurt the person and you're skilled enough,
Yeah, I'm skilled enough.
exactly, you won't.
You
and
get
can
paired
control.
with
So that's what I'm saying.
fucking
It's not.
dimwits.
It's you're already starting from a place where it's possible, right? Whereas with the kickboxing, it's not possible to hit somebody in the face and have it not hurt. You know what I mean? It's different levels of hurt, but it's always going to hurt. Whereas you can do jiu-jitsu and control somebody if you know how and have no one get hurt. So if you're playing with someone else who's doing that, that's a good one because, again, it does improve your flexibility and all the warm-ups and
Okay,
shit you do.
now
like
that's a big if. My experience training in jiu-jitsu is being paired with morons that don't know their own strength, that don't have sensitivity, that don't understand gravity and their body weight,
Yeah.
that have injured me
But
more
none of
than
that's
once.
a fault of the art. You know what
Well,
I'm
I'm
saying?
not saying
right?
it's a fault of the art, but that's
Yeah.
why I'm not training jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, no, that's fine with those guys.
Yes.
If you found a good group, though, this is what I'm saying is because there's lots of people who get into like Ed O'Neill's a great example of this guy who was Modern Family and Married with Children. Anyways, he got into jiu-jitsu in like his 50s because it was just something he wanted to do, and he's still doing it. Because again, it's at its core, it's a softer art compared to those other ones. Right? Even judo is more throws. It's hard to practice the techniques of judo without incorporating some throws. For jiu-jitsu, you can practice, and now you want to roll. Okay, well, we can roll with me starting on my back and you on top of me, and we're in tight and close, and that's even realistic because you can picture that the fight already got to here, right? So you can still do realistic rolling, starting at a place where no one gets hurt to start, and you're already in control, and then it's just the game being played from there, right? That's what I'm saying. You really can't do that with boxing. You can't do that with kickboxing.
Oh, yeah, you can. If you're with a controlled individual, I did stick around for a year, and they do sparring every single class, and it's minimal contact, no contact sparring. Now, you're actually fighting, or contact sparring is a different thing. But if you have control, you can like punch this far away from somebody and
Yeah.
not make contact. You can do light contact.
I'm just saying it's so much harder when you're both moving and you're both doing it for that to not have incidental contact, for you to not accidentally end up with a black eye or a broken nose.
Okay, a black eye and a broken nose is nothing compared to a broken wrist. And this is my issue. It's nothing. For me, I'd rather lose a tooth for my trade than have my wrist broken, because then I don't work, or my ankle broken, or my knee broken.
Yeah.
Because me not walking
Yeah.
is a lot worse than me having a broken nose. And jiu-jitsu, people that don't know their strength, don't know the art, don't know the thing, and they've seen something on TV they want to try out and don't have that control. You're going to have a great experience if you're rolling with the instructors and with the black belts or the brown belts or the blue belts. You're not going to have a great experience just fucking around with some white belt that wants to be an MMA fighter. And that's been my experience.
And that would be the
straight
similar
up.
experience if you're doing kickboxing with someone who wanted to do that. You'd have the similar experience doing boxing with someone who's of the same mentality and the same level.
Yes.
And the difference with
So
that
that
is they're
being
probably
said-
going to knock you out, let alone twist an arm or break one. And in all honesty, a broken arm, you know how far you got to go to break an arm? You don't got to go very far to break a nose or smash somebody's
If I'm
eye.
here, I've got a
Yeah.
right angle, and my
Yeah.
wrist is here.
Yeah.
And Buddy drops his entire body weight
Oh,
on
for
it
sure.
because he doesn't have the control or the wherewithal to know his limits. Yeah, the damage is significantly more dangerous in my experience. When some guy lifts me up off the ground and slams me on my spine because he doesn't know how to put me down and roll on top, he's just a dummy. Poof. And I can't walk because my back's jammed up. It's just not an art I'm willing to do. And I can't, in that class, say, fuck this guy. I'm not engaging with this guy, because then the entire vibe of that class goes off. Oh, why won't you engage with him? Because he's a fucking moron. He doesn't know his limits. He doesn't know his weight. He doesn't know his strength. This is the fucking clown that put a heel hook on me for no reason.
Yeah.
He doesn't know the pressure to do it. So yeah, it's just not. It's not in my. And there's no Gracie Jim here with somebody who's like, oh, you break somebody's knee, I break your knee. That's my experience, straight up.
I think you just had piss poor experiences then, because that's not my
Apparently.
experience. But I've tried with a few different jiu-jitsu gyms, and like, I generally, I'm just saying, like, it's a softer art to start with. It starts from a softer place, so that's why I think it would be more beneficial for more people to get into it in their older years.
I think there's other arts that you could do as well. So either way. So everyone I don't like is Hitler. Is something else I have on.
In what way?
No, that's something else on my list here. I got into it on the internet with somebody who basically they said the easiest way to find a Nazi on the internet is to put I don't like Nazis, and anybody says, what are you talking about? Just because you don't like somebody doesn't mean they're a racist or a Nazi. That's a Nazi.
I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that either. And this is the dynamic that we're living in. I'm sorry, did the jiu-jitsu conversation frustrate you and get you
upset? It did a little
upset?
bit frustrate me, honestly, because I just feel like you thought I was pushing some sort of jiu-jitsu propaganda about how people should just do that. I was just trying to explain that if you're going to compare the two at a face value, kickboxing and jiu-jitsu, for example, if you're looking for one that's safer and you could do into your later years with less damage to your body, I would say jiu-jitsu is the one you can go with. And if you're going to continually roll with shitty partners who constantly hurt you, of course not. That's not going to work.
See, okay, and I agree with that. Now, I believe you didn't hear me when I said my experience, personal experience with jiu-jitsu has been negative, so I won't do it at my age because I have injuries and because I've been damaged by people. And that's basically it. So you negated what I said in favor of what you wanted to talk about.
No, what I said was a broad statement for anyone to take into. Then you made it personal about how it wouldn't work for you on your journey, and I explained to you that that's because you've been on a shitty journey with shitty people. If it was a different journey, you probably wouldn't have had the same circumstances. And I understand that's changing your view for now, but I don't think that should taint it for anyone else who hasn't had your experience in shitty jiu-jitsu gyms to see what the difference is.
Okay. So if you're 45 years old and you want to take up a martial art for the first time, jump in with 25-year-olds that don't know what they're doing.
Not what I said.
No, that's what I'm telling people
Why would you do that?
because that was my experience.
Now, how'd that work out for you?
I got injured.
Exactly. So then why would you tell someone to do that?
I'm being sarcastic.
Okay.
If you could find the right jiu-jitsu gym and they're going to pair you with competent instructors and pair you with competent people right off the bat, not the alpha male guys that really have something to prove, I'm sure it's a great environment. My experience in the past has not been that thing. So that was my experience. I will roll with instructors. I will roll with top guys. I won't roll with any more beginners, straight up. So I imagine the same reason I won't jump into a boxing ring with a rank beginner or try and do kickboxing with somebody who doesn't know distance, doesn't know strength, doesn't know range. I've been doing martial arts since I was 13 years old. I know my distance, I know my strength, I know my range, I know how the gravity works, I know not to drop my entire weight on joints, or try to push stuff that isn't working. And, people that ignore taps, not cool. People that don't know what they're doing, don't know how to use techniques, not cool. And unfortunately, with the huge influx of young people getting into MMA, I see that more and more and more. Everybody wants to be on TV, everybody wants to be a fighter, and they don't want to spend the time working on their sensitivity. That was just, my experience with the martial arts community in a lot of ways, especially the contemporary martial arts community. It is what it is. Yeah.
Did you want to talk about the Hitler thing?
Oh, no, we can edit all that out, I guess. I don't know.
Nah, leave it in. It's a real conversation. We don't always get along about everything.
Well,
and I don't think we're even not getting along. Never mind. I'm not going to talk about it. Let's move along. But yeah, you were saying you were writing some new music.
Oh, yeah, I'm just coming up with some stuff. I'm writing some projects.
I'm interested. And you said you were using like a drum track?
Well, there's a couple. I've got a couple Korg. What is it called? Drum machines. I use Korg K-Oscillator Pro on iPad. It's they gave it away free when COVID started up. Same thing with another company. They gave away like a synthesizer. So I've been writing some tunes with that. Just
So
private project kind of thing.
Like all that on an iPad?
Oh, you could.
Really?
Like there's bass. There's Well, yeah, especially with the synthesizer. You could set up like a drum track with the synth. You could do a bass lines with the synth. They have guitar with that. But my brother also dropped off a Les Paul and a little practice amp, so I can do some direct input stuff. Been writing some lyrics again. It's pretty much a standard shit, you know. All the
Like,
same political,
I was just gonna say kind of like
subversive
political stuff. Well, that's what's fucking going on now, right? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you're gonna write music of the times, that's what's happening. Like,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate.
street rock for the conscious man is what I'm hoping, you know.
Ah, well, I like the sound of that.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck did that actually remind? Well, just even like art projects, like yeah. So I don't know if they're gonna be doing more stand up for a bit here because it kind of sounds like everybody was shutting their open mics down now, and our numbers are going crazy around here. So I got to
Are they?
fucking well, not crazy, but like it looks like 60, 70 new cases a day, and I think that's the province. So I mean, multiply that enough times, that's getting going again, and that's why they're scaling shit back and keeping what the fuck do you call it? Like dance bars and shit like that can't serve booze after 10 now.
I don't know why they were ever opened again. I'm really leery about schools opening again. You're just dumping people into highly congested environments,
Yeah.
you know. And you add alcohol, well, yeah, it's like an inhibition reducer, you know. And so,
Well,
like,
we're seeing how this all doesn't work when you don't do it right. And I mean, like we did a fair bit, but I mean, like yeah, it's even Manitoba. Their numbers have been going nuts lately, and we're always just a little bit behind everybody on everything. So I'm sure that'll be the case. But anyways, yeah. So no, there's no fucking. I don't think there'll be much for open mics lately. So maybe I should just like work on a bunch of new stuff, I guess, and write more. I'm inspired when I hear you say you're writing because I'm always like, well, fuck, I should be doing that more.
well, it's funny because I started singing some of the songs for my girlfriend. She's like, "That sounds like that other band," and I'm like, "Don't say it." She's like, "You know that one, you know the Tool, the Screwdriver one, right?" And I'm like, "Fuck off." I love
Matter
like,
when I just tried to dress up and make some nice music for people, and everybody think I'm a white supremacist. This
I
is
don't
fucking
give a fuck.
bullshit.
I'm not, but you know, I don't give a fuck what people think about me, you know. And like the stuff that I'm writing is very interesting because I believe that there's common issues that both the right and left feel. You know what I mean? Like when you're working poor and you can't fucking pay rent, or you miss a house payment, you're tossed on the street. Who are the fucking ones that are really making money behind it all? This is gonna get the gears going, you know. And the left talk about it and the right talk about it, but they keep pointing fingers at each other. They're never pointing.
Well, and
upwards.
what's crazy to me is that the extremists on both ends of those, if you took away the politics of their situations, whether it was actual politics or gender politics or whatever it is, that imaginary shit that isn't real, that they're pretending is a big fucking deal. Well, you think this, then you must think that. And like none of that's actually punching you in the face. That's even just them maybe thinking it. You know what I mean? You take that shit out of the equation, they got nothing but stuff in common, right? They
Yes.
come from similar backgrounds a lot of times, similar level of education, similar fucking problems. Like,
See, okay, so the lyrics I'm writing, if some like a Proud Boy heard it, they're like, that guy's probably a communist. And if some communist fucking read it, well, that guy's obviously a fascist.
that means you're doing it fucking right, though. If both sides can see you with disdain, because I think extremists on either side are fucked. You know what I
Or-
mean? If an extremist
or-
on either side sees me and thinks that I'm not doing something right, I'm like, cool, right on.
Or conversely, some of those guys will say, hey, what he's saying is making sense. And on the other side, hey, that makes sense. And that's basically it.
You become the Gavin McGinnis all of a sudden, hey?
Yeah, like, you know, well, who knows? It's not Gavin McGinnis. But straight up, I think there's a problem with capitalism. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I
right.
don't think the communists necessarily have the solution, and I definitely know the right wing people don't have the solution. Like it's not the Jews, guys, you know, right? And I
Can we just
there-
make that clear for
I
everybody? The
think there's
problem is
some-
not the Jewish people.
there is some economic elites going on, but I think it has to do with monarchy.
Oh my fuck! Sorry, man. That just reminded me of something that just popped into my head. I just saw a thing, and it was a group trying to tout the great work that Jared Kushner's been doing in the White House and talking about these Middle East peace accords that he's been brokering and working behind the scenes and making all this peace come to the Middle East. And I was like, geez, that seems odd. I should check on this article. So I clicked onto it. On these peace accords, he's talking about, yeah, we're bringing peace to the Middle East, and the way he did it was by just going around Palestine. And I'm like, well, no, like that's the problem.
Yeah.
Palestine is the problem in the Middle East, and you're going to go ahead and be like, look, we've made deals with everybody but them, so we've worked it all out. And like,
Oh, he just worked
nope.
around
That's what
Palestine?
his article was trying to say. It's like, yeah, we fixed the problem by just working around the problem. And it's like, no, that's not. And again, that's what fucking major powers in Israel have wanted. That's why they've always had American backing for a lot of shit, and because they want to keep doing what they're doing.
To me, Israel is the elephant in the room. You know,
That's
straight up, like
right.
you know, in the Middle East.
Sorry, go ahead.
Why? Why are you there? Why? Because your holy book says that you've got like domain. Well, guess what? Other holy books say you fucking don't. What makes yours more important? You know, and I don't want to go into the potential for some economic influence in North America and in the UK, but why the fuck are we giving money to Israel at all? At all.
Yep.
And why are you so afraid to offend people when you say, I don't support Israeli expansion and imperialism? Now, that's not anti-Semitic. I really value...
Yeah, and that's the immediate argument, right? You must be an anti-Semite. It's like, well, okay, if I'm not fine with British colonial fucking oppression, if they're continuing to do that in those ways, am I some sort of...
Exactly.
I don't even know what the fuck you would call that. Anti-Britite? I don't know.
I'm anti-imperialist. You know,
right?
That's what it boils down to.
If your prophet is the one that spoke to you and you're still an imperialist, I don't give a shit which prophet it was.
Yeah, I don't give a shit if your magic sky daddy said it's okay.
None of that matters to me anyways. I don't believe any of it, so I can't take it personally to you.
Basically, when you impose your fucking will on another person without consent, you're being an imperialist. And I don't care if it's a personal level, a conversation level, or a national level. I disagree with the principle. And if your magic book says that you're God's chosen fucking people, so you've got a right to do this to everybody else, that's a flawed fucking manual, man.
And I don't agree.
The conscious, yes.
That's what you think. Cool. I don't agree. Let's continue from there.
Yeah, I guess we can get deep. The consciousness of the universe gives a shit about this little bit of the Gaza. Like, no, right. I saw this.
Well, okay, but what's weird about it though is how much weird ancient shit is in that area. Like even I can't remember what the fuck it's called, but like that huge square that everybody comes and prays around in a big circle. You have to move in a certain direction, and you have to try and touch that chunk of asteroid as you go around.
It's a black asteroid.
I wish I remember what any of this was called, but I mean
that's Mecca. I forget what it's
Mecca,
called,
but I can't remember what the thing is called.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is just called Mecca, and then...
Yeah, I'm not sure what that... No, I think it's got a name.
You guys will figure this out if anybody's listening. Look at the big black
Islam,
blocks.
you know, I don't understand.
Jesus Christ, I don't know if that... Yeah. Well, I don't understand it. I also don't have a problem. I'm just saying I don't understand. But what I'm getting at is, it's just there's things like that are in that part of the world where it's like, well, no, if there was some sort of weird ancient power attached to any of this fucking shit, I guess it makes sense to fight over it. But at the same time, I don't know, man.
You know, somebody made a cult about that fucking oversized Viking turd that was petrified. It was like the biggest shit that they've ever found. It, like petrified shit. Some sick,
like of a human shit?
Yes, sick Viking laid a log like fucking the size of a small baby. You know, if some cult surrounded that, then everybody be traveling to the Mecca in fucking Norway. But they didn't. They here's a black asteroid. This must be the sacred thing that we're gonna hike around. I don't buy it.
Yeah, I know it's weird, right? But I'm just saying there's a lot of that going on in there. There's a lot of these things where it's like, well, no, this was a center of power thousands of years ago for our people, and we have to have it. It was kind of like Hitler grabbing the spear of destiny and all that shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird because he was, on face value, I assume there's nothing really of value to those things other than historical significance. You know, like the spear of destiny. Other than the historical significance of existing and the place it's been and who's had it, who gives a fuck? There's nothing actually powerful about that. But what if there was? You know what I mean? And it gets to be like, well, then what is that? So that, I don't know.
If you want to talk about geography, you can look at Siberia. The Siberian shamans, the shamanic traditions of Siberia, kind of in Mongolia, that kind of area, are some of the world's most ancient spiritual traditions. And they said that like the earliest books of like spirituality were brought down through Georgia area into Iran, into India. The Rig Veda talked about a chariot horse riding people that had a spirituality, and that was like 6,000 years ago. So like the first old school spiritualities came from those areas. So if you go to the traditions of Siberian shamanic tradition, you're looking at some of the world's oldest religious spiritual traditions.
And that's interesting that would come from the north to the south, but almost everything else in human evolution seems to go the opposite.
Well, they say that the human evolution came from Africa. I'm not sure how legitimate it is, but what they're saying is something happened in that little area around Iran, the Caucasus Mountains, and that's the original pantheism, and some moved upwards towards Norway, to the Germanic tribes, like the Germanic shamanism, moved to Greece, you know, where the Greek philosophy and the Greek pantheism came, and then the Hindu pantheism came from that too, where the Rig Veda talked about Indra and Rama, and I think some of the other, like the pantheon of the ancient gods, right? But I don't know how that factors into the Sumerian, where the Sumerians were Mesopotamia.
Well, the Mesopotamia, it's kind of it's that area.
Yeah, right in Iran, kind of, or what's Iraq, Iran area.
Yeah. And so I guess that kind of does make sense that if that was where the oldest anything religious writings, societal teachings, any of that kind of shit, if that's where it was, I guess that kind of makes sense. It would disperse from
all
there.
of that stuff
It just
would
seems
be
odd
around
that you're
there.
like you said, like it's like it came down to these people. It's like no, these guys that were further away from where it all started physically, they had more advanced knowledge than us, even though we were closer to it. And that almost then could possibly tie in with the idea that there had been cataclysms that had wiped out vast swaths of our intelligence or whatever, and then there was pockets that still had that, living in the mountains, for example. Maybe if there was a great flood, and then after everybody else picks up their pieces and starts getting back to regular society, they go, "Well, you guys are way more advanced." Like, nah, we've been here the same amount of time. We just didn't lose everything. We didn't have somebody wipe our slate clean.
Well, the deluge myth is generally, I think most anthropologists that talk about it says that there was a society that had an advanced writing system or advanced spirituality or understanding of astronomy for some strange reason. And then and all of a sudden this flood happened or an earthquake happened and everybody got in their boats and had to go wherever the fuck they could go. And so these ancient symbols or ancient philosophies, ancient ideas on like culture, psychology, spirituality, got decimated because whatever that ancient civilization, this is that Atlantean kind of idea where they
That's all I was thinking the whole time.
Yeah, they're running around. So
Atlantis,
pyramids are all around the world. The idea of pyramids and those pyramid temples and that pantheism got decimated from these ancient cultures. So I think that's part of that, which leads us to the swastika. It's a world symbol. The swastika is an ancient world symbol. They found it in fucking Africa. They find it in, South America. They find it in Asia. They find it in India. They find it in Europe, obviously. Obviously, Europe. No. And then some whack jobs 80 years ago decide to manipulate it, turn it into an evil symbol, and now it's taboo. We don't look at it. We don't talk about it. We don't discuss it. And on an esoteric energy kind of level, I really wonder about the motivations to erase a sacred symbol, right?
Well, you think about the other things that have been withheld from us, knowledge-wise, by church or state or whatever. Well, when they start to erase something like that, then you're kind of like, oh, was it just that it was evil, or was there some value in what the teaching was that you don't want us to know?
Yeah, the people that are
You got to demonize it.
supporting an angry sky daddy,
Yes.
or the people that are, okay. So there's two different opposing viewpoints where when it comes to spirituality. One is generally an ecocentric, a dharmic kind of way where like we're part of an ecosystem, and the other is a human supremacy way. And the human supremacy way usually boils down to the Abrahamic faiths, the God of Abraham being Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, and the dharmic faiths being Hinduism, Buddhism, shamanism, Taoism, pretty much all of the more earth-based ecocentric, or like we're part of a larger ecology. So these are two opposing worldviews, right? And those two opposing worldviews, one became dominant through imposition of will, through colonialism, through slaughtering everybody, and the other one was generally the slaughtered. You know what I mean? Indigenous cultures and shit like that. So with the sword came the Bible, came the Quran, came not so much the what was it, the Talmud and the Zohar.
And it's not to say that like in India and stuff that they in their history they didn't have the big religious wars and stuff, but the ones they wrote about, a lot of times they were fighting sky beings and there was these flying vimanas and all this kind of shit where you're just like, oh, maybe you got it all out of your system when you guys were having the fights with the fucking extraterrestrials that were fucking around down here, and now you just kind of like get taken over every once in a while.
Well, and there are fights, like there's historical fights between like the Muslims in that area and the Hindus, fighting for land, fighting for expansion, fighting for their preservation of culture or expansion of culture. I don't know if the Hindus really wanted to go slaughter people to expand Hinduism, but I think that happened the other way. And so to me, Abrahamism is the antithesis of earth-based philosophy, earth-based religion. And I had a discussion online with a guy who was a Jewish guy, and he defended Judaism. I'm like, well, man, it's just another trip with the God's chosen people. And he's like, well, in the Jewish people believe that God chose them to carry the burden of having to obey the 10 Commandments. It's a burden. It's not we're chosen. We're chosen to endure burdens.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah, it's a burden to not want to just steal from your neighbor, not to murder somebody. That's a burden.
Well, yeah. But then, and I asked him, well, what is Gentile? What is a Gentile in the Jewish faith? Well, that's a non-Jewish person. So Christians are Gentiles and Islam is Gentiles. So they're the outsiders and you're the insiders, right? So everybody is an outsider and you're an insider. But you go to Buddhism and there's no outsiders. You know, like even Christians are practicing, you know, a system of enlightenment, like bhakti yoga, right? The same thing with the Hindus. The Hindus have something like 3 million versions of what God could represent. And it depends on your own personal personality, which path to righteousness you're going to follow. The furious one, the gentle one, the kind one, the searching intellectual one.
Well, and as you talk about it too, it makes me feel like there's more of a, this is all what's happening, and yeah, you can be part of this in the ways that you can. Like you said, you're not separated from it. Whereas with the other one, there's a big separation of like, listen, you fucking Neanderthals, you need this touch of the light from the heaven to come down and someone to be your example that you have to rally around because you guys can't figure this fucking shit out on your own. You're too dumb.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We have to come down and enlighten you. Whereas that sounds more like it's like, no, if you're participating in the experience, that is the enlightenment. You're being part of it and being in tune with it.
Yeah.
Instead of like, when's it coming? Who's bringing it down to me?
At any time, like you can follow a path that leads you towards your personal salvation, enlightenment, altered state of consciousness. So let's say you're a furious individual. There's a whole pantheon of furious Hindu or furious Tibetan, Buddhist icons that represent enlightenment through wrath, right? As opposed to the idea of the Christian dichotomy as good or evil. That's it.
Yeah.
Scary things are bad. Things we like are good. And but then let's say you're peaceful and you really enjoy, you know, relaxing and chilling and generosity and kindness. Well, there's icons that all of those symbols represent that path to enlightenment, you know. So I really got drawn towards Hinduism because I was a furious dude. And I'm like, well, look, here's a Hindu god, a lion-headed Hindu god tearing apart a demon. I'm like, oh yeah, that's badass. I can get behind that, you know. As opposed to the Christians would say that's a demon,
right?
Because he's scary and he's doing mean things, you know. No, he's tearing apart.
And it's interesting that with those ones, it's like you're all going to get to the same place. It's all the point is enlightenment. So which journey do you want to do?
Yes.
You want to do the furious one? There's gonna be lots of fire and fucking around. You might lose a hand. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
Right. You're looking at your previously sewed up finger.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I agree. Well, again, I'm covered with scars too for fucking not taking the easier, smarter route.
And those are the hard lessons. And you know, and the demons in those symbols are the ego. Variations of the ego, and the hard guys tear apart the ego.
Well, that's fucking sorry. That just really hit home with one specific example I was thinking of. I one time just about lost a finger using an angle grinder because I wasn't using a guard or any of that kind of shit and doing it properly. I was just tough guy in it, you know. I don't need a fucking guard on this thing. I'm just gonna do it. That was my ego fucking with me, and then the repercussions of it is I'm sitting in a fucking emergency room 20 minutes later trying to not lose my finger.
Well, and you can look at war yoga. Like I got that shirt says war yoga, and a lot of that is martial training, and this goes back to our jiu-jitsu conversation, where you do have to swallow your ego to go in there. And to me, that wasn't the issue, because I don't mind learning. I don't mind tapping. It's just when I got to the point where I'm realizing, okay, I'm getting injured and I'm not going to do this anymore. That's a different type. So you kind of got to balance whether or not this is a rational fear or an irrational fear. Am I just losing my pride, or can I potentially lose my livelihood? So
well, if it's consistently what's happening to you,
yeah,
like,
I just get impaired.
Maybe this is my experience in this world.
Well, you know, right? You know, like, I'm not going to go there no more.
I keep learning the same lessons doing this thing.
Yeah. So that's the deal. And I think, and the gentle ones, they heal the ego. They heal demons. They don't fucking tear them apart and beat the shit out of them. They're like, no, we're going to take away the pain. And you know, that's the right hand path and left hand path. So I think that stuff's very, very interesting.
I wonder if there's any difference in time for any of those things. If it all still takes a lifetime, you know what I mean? Because I just think about like, because to me, like tearing it apart sometimes feels like the quicker way too. It's like, I want to get this fucking done. Let's go do this. Where it's like, well, no, but if you nurture this lion and eventually and gain its trust, and then throughout years it's going to become. But then you start thinking about even the tearing apart of things. Well, how long does that take? But then you still have to rebuild something. And then how do you get derailed between the tearing apart to the rebuilding with the other ththings you have to do? You know, does it end up taking the same amount of time?
Well, they say that it's faster. The risks are greater, but the rewards are greater.
I guess like climbing the mountain.
Yes,
instead of meditating on it. Okay.
They one is a highway through hell, and the other is a stairway to heaven.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to be walking.
I want one of those electric chairs that goes up and down.
Psychedelics.
Yeah. Mushrooms. The electric chair of the brain.
You're going to get there regardless.
Wait a minute. Electric chair of the brain. That's not what I meant.
Yeah. Right.
Wait. Whoopsie daisy.
Well, you can go to India and hang out with sadhus and holy men and gurus, and it's interesting because the guru is supposed to be your individual teacher to take you to that spot, and he looks at you and he says, this is what you need, this is what you're going to go through, and this is the path you're going to take. Now sadhus are the guys that are just doing it on their own. They might bump into a guru here or there, they might study in an ashram or a monastery for a while, and then they go off on their own. And one of my favorite guru sadhus is a guy named Bhagavan Das, and he wrote a book called It's Here Now, Are You? And he was the guy that Ram Dass, that Be Here Now, he's the dude he ran into when he went to India. He's the first white guy. He's like, hey, I'm on a search too. Here, I'll go introduce you to our guru. And but Bhagavan Das was a nutbag. Fucking nutbag. He did, like, he hung out in the cremation grounds. He did cannibalism. Like, he hung out with the Agori tribes. He also went to Nepal.
He went on that dark fucking path. Eh?
Yeah, some of it.
Interesting.
And he went to Nepal. He hung out with Buddhists. Then he moved back to America. He kind of became, in the 1960s, hippie liberation kind of like rock star, like a guru rock star. But then he ended up becoming a used car salesman. He went into born again Christianity as a new path of his spirituality for a while. Ended up hooking up with like an 18-year-old girl for a while and got a divorce. Then he went back to Hinduism. So it's funny because he's still alive. He just got in a car accident, but he's unpacking a lot of his attitudes towards sexuality and relationships. But he's very transparent about it, which is really, really cool.
Well, and what's interesting to me is that a guy like that who pick a time in the last 60 years where you could have pigeonholed him to what he was. You know what I mean? And then you go 15 years later and like, well, no, that's not what that fucking
and
guy
that's
is
part
anymore.
of his trip.
And again, yeah, and he would have been the example to a lot of people of like how to be that thing. Look at this guy really out here doing the thing. And then you like fast forward, so you're selling cars and you're a Christian. Okay, what happened? But that's
part of his
journey, man.
What he would call his sadhana, like his path or his program towards finding God.
And I like that you talked about there being kind of more of a almost institutionalized version of this path where you go and meet with a guru and they kind of help you cater it to your existence, and then you figure out how to navigate it in that way. And then like you said, like the teacherless student, almost
the solitary seeker,
where you go and it's a lot more trials and tribulations, but they say a lot of times that's where you find innovation, right? If you're just learning how to build something on your own, you're going to trial and error, like building a cabinet, trial and error, and eventually you might get good. Where somebody just carpenter taught you how to do it, you're going to learn it a lot quicker.
Yep.
But you may come up with variations and ideas that the carpenter never even fucking explored because they're going directly to the thing and they know the path. Where you're like, well, no, I got to see this and that and the other thing, and then it adds flavor to it.
If you train exclusively under one carpenter, you never deviate from his way of carpentry. As opposed to if you're a little bit from over here and a little bit from over here, and you're like, oh, haven't you heard that the Islamic carpenters do it like this, and like the guys from Nepal build it like this, and in Japan they do it like this. You end up with your own flavor, and it's your carpentry as opposed to.
I feel like that's what I've been drawn to throughout my life more. Like I mean, I like I said, I like routine for things. It helps me, like anybody. If you have a routine or something, it's a lot easier to keep on track, to keep getting better at it and doing it. But if it's an imposed routine, a lot of times I'm resistant to it, and if it doesn't work in the ways I want it to, then I want to throw the whole fucking thing out.
Punk rock, Western
That's
culture.
what I'm saying, right? That's why
it's individualism.
Keep doing what I'm doing, right?
So I think we're all going to find our own path because it's just part of our personality through chopper culture, punk rock, all of it. It's like we're a very individual culture versus that collective culture. And
what's crazy, it all gets you the same place too, right? If you're doing it with a similar intent.
Well, it's kind of fucked because, you can go join the Hare Krishnas and you just do your mantra until the cows come home, and hopefully you're going to have some transformative experience. Or you could go down to the United Church and go, pray and sing at the choir every Sunday, and that makes you a moral person. But I find in Western culture, we're extremely materialist and very superficial to boot. And so you're a good person if you do once a week and you go sing your hymns. That's all you need to do. I'm a church-going guy. I'm a degenerate scumbag during the week.
I was just gonna say, if you don't do any bad, and that's the only other thing. Like if you're not contributing negatively, and you just do that thing, okay, fine, that's probably working, right? But again, if you use it as this balances shit out for me. I came in here and I did this to pay my amends for all the shitty things I did during the week. Well, that don't work.
Well,
that don't work.
Well, exactly. Like, okay, so Western Christianity. You go once a week, you do what you're told, you're good. You can be a degenerate the rest of the week as long as you go in and, you've done your confession. As opposed to the person who's living morally that never goes to church, well, that's a bad person. He's a bad member of the community. You can't trust him. Or you're covered in tattoos, but you don't fuck around. Oh, yeah, right? So that's kind of a weird one.
Maybe the first, though.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
I went to I went to a meditation group one time right after I had a run-in with a buddy now, and I was black and blue, like two black eyes, the whole nine, stitches, and I'm like, so I'm here to do some meditation. I think it's time, and they're like, oh, what the fuck,
Yeah, you're the guy that needs it, right?
Yeah, well, and that is it.
Fucking destructive path we're on, right?
Well, who needs
Not
it
everybody
more?
needs two black eyes to start meditating.
Who needs it more? All these hippies that are there that are just like, masturbating, or the person who's actually, because that's what I look at it. You guys are just fucking jacking off. We're so enlightened. We're so great. Who's down in the trenches trying to save the people going through hell? You know what I mean? And that's, I think that's, well, it's all metaphor, right? But, and I think that's what needs to happen more. Like we talked about ceremony in the indigenous community. Who needs it more than people that have suffered like tremendous trauma, that are maybe spinning their gears with toxic coping mechanisms?
At every type of society previously, that's who that was for.
Yes.
If you were a fine functioning member of the tribe and you could always commute and you never had the ghosts from the fucking forest come into the tribe with you, you didn't need that shit. You just hung out and did what you did and fucking had a good life, right?
Yeah.
And then those of you that were the tortured souls that did have that shit, well, then that's who's got to go on the fucking quest.
We see, and that's, I think the psychological aspect of Hinduism and Buddhism comes into play, where they talk what Christians would consider demonic, and all that other shit. Those are just like toxic coping mechanisms. It's manifestations of your ego that takes you to bad places.
Well, and lots of that was back in the day. Those were giving a name and a face to something that was a physical ailment of some sort. Like you had an actual brain injury, or you actually had a plague of some sort. It's the goddamn demons up in you.
Especially in the Western culture, but I think in Eastern and like more dharmic systems, they looked at it as being parts of your personality. You know what I mean? Carl Jung, I had a quote here written down, that the best political, social, and spiritual work we can do is to withdraw the projection of our own shadow onto others.
Fuck, man, that hits home.
Right? and what we would call the shadow in psychology, or what in psychology calls a shadow, the Christianity would call the devil, or the work of Satan. You know what I mean? Like, that's the bad side of reality. Well, that bad side's all in us. You know what I mean?
What's interesting to me too is with Lucifer, the illuminator, the bringer of light, the bringer of knowledge, the fucking snake with the apple of knowledge. Like, all that shit to me implies that this is withheld information.
Yep.
And it's always to protect us, right? Because if we knew, well, then what would we do? How would we live? Wouldn't we be terrible? I don't know. And that's my thing, is like, I'd like to know what those terrible things are, and then just go, okay, cool, that's not for me. I don't need that.
If you suddenly realize that you were free and you could do whatever you wanted, what would you do? Well, probably whatever you fucking wanted, until you started realizing there's consequences to your actions. Now, okay, so consequence reality. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction.
Yep.
That's the basic root of this, the principle of karma.
Yep.
Okay? If I do A, B is going to happen.
Yep.
That's it. If I do stupid shit, chances are I'm going to get the repercussions of stupid shit coming back to me. That's karma in a nutshell. Now, the debate is whether that carries over to any transcendental, esoteric, or, ethereal level, where universally this is going to have a consequence. Whether there will be consequences on my psyche after I leave this body. That's a debate. But for a tangible, the rock is in my hand fucking explanation of karma, if I do stupid shit, I'm going to have to suffer the result internally and externally of the stupid shit I'm doing.
Yes.
If I'm running around fucking people over to survive, I'm going to be a paranoid guy that I'm going to get caught.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I think when people start worrying about the shadow people, when they're getting all strung out on drugs, or, those bad trips, that's just the consequences of your own fucking internal workings trying to work itself out.
We talked about this once on the podcast team. Your brother and I were explaining to somebody else like how much mushrooms to take the first time taking them, and
What would you say? I don't mean to derail.
A very small amount.
Yes.
Start small and give it an hour, maybe an hour and a half, maybe two. Anyways, so yeah, that's kind of what we're telling him, right? Like, just take it easy, start small. And for fuck's sakes, I forgot where the fuck I started with this on this goddamn conversation. That just
sorry, I didn't.
No worries. Fuck, what were we just talking about?
Right before then?
Yeah.
Russ, what were we just talking about? He's on autopilot.
This
I'm
is a
on
classic.
autopilot.
We're fighting with each other, dead space. I can't remember what the fuck I'm talking about.
Okay.
Number one. But anyways, yeah, just
it was karma and
that's what it was.
actions,
So the
yes.
mushrooms.
Thank
So
you.
we're saying he's like, how much should I take? I don't want to have a bad trip or whatever. And we're like, well, you might have one. I said, I honestly don't know someone that's never had a bad trip. Like, everybody's had at least one in my head. And but he's like, well, no, Ben never has. He's only ever had good trips. And I was like, yeah, but he's got no demons.
Yeah.
And that's just for the first thing that came to my head. I was like, yeah, but he's got no demons. And I'm like, ah, fuck, you know what, though? That's probably exactly what it is. He doesn't have a
On a
bunch of this heavy shit
metaphorical
that he's
reason.
carrying around
Yeah.
with him that really does eat at him. And again, like, he's a good stand-up dude, works hard all the time, has a bunch of kids and a wife, and
He's
he's
a
like,
straight shooter.
you know who I'm talking about, and he
Yeah.
is, right? And then as soon as I said that, I clicked, and I'm like, fuck, that's why the rest of us keep throwing up or crying or having a freak out like at least once a year. Hey? It's like
Plagued by
we keep
demons.
letting these demons out of us with these fucking, or at least they have to come up and we got to deal with them for a minute with the mushrooms.
See, and we use them in a metaphorical language, but I believe those are literal. That's literally what these ancient cultures were talking about, is exactly that. And now it's up in the air about whether that's outside us,
Yeah.
if it's something coming from outside us or coming from within us. And me personally, for the safety of everybody involved, I'd like to address it within me.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
it's coming from inside me somewhere. So I don't worry about like these things coming from outside of me. These aren't outside influences. This is all me.
See, that's how I felt. I was like, I was being attacked.
Yeah,
you know what I
in a
mean?
lot of
And when all of a
ways.
sudden you're like, no, this is just you, and these are the things you do. And what's even crazier is, now that I'm thinking about it, is how many of the negative things that are in my head get played out in the physical world, and not just with my words and actions, but my actual, like, my body, how my body feels and reacts. And a lot of it is, I don't care about what I'm eating because I'm already in a negative place. You know what I mean? I don't care about doing this right thing.
It's a
because-
self-medicating
and I
kinda-
want something that's going to fucking give me something instantly, right? And again, that comes from a negative place in my head, not a place in my body that's making me physically do that, or someone else telling me to.
And it's also you think it's a healing.
Yes,
You think
I
it's
feel
a healing.
good for a minute.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yep.
but it's not real
and
healing.
then it's fine
It's-
too, because I've had so much pain that's fine.
Yeah,
you know what
yeah.
I mean. And again, that's what we just justify shit like that going, like grief specifically. Like I was saying before, like, this will be Thursday. Will be a week since, or a month, or fuck, a year since Matthew killed himself, and it's been
That's
fucking.
heavy.
It is, man. You know, and like and it's it's
Like
been
minimize.
it's,
That's heavy.
it's a little bit heavy, you know, but it's again, like, that's again, I keep justifying shit like that to myself because I'm like, yeah, but I'm hurt. It's okay. It's like having a broken leg. It's okay not to do these things because you're hurt until you're healed, right? But now I'm getting to a point where I'm like, yeah, but it's gonna keep hurting. It's gonna be smaller and it's gonna be less, and over time it'll get easier, but it's gonna keep hurting. So I gotta stop using that as an excuse now.
So
I've done my excuse for that. None of my pants fit. Now I have to fucking start, you know,
Sit
living
in there
living in a
and
better
be there.
balanced way for myself, because this isn't balanced for me. It's not a good way for me to be. But
Well-
it's like I felt like I had, or I could be, because of the pain.
Well, the Jungian psychologists would say that, like, until you're willing to sit in that and be present
man.
with that and,
Yep.
and let that overwhelm you, be as ugly as it takes, and then pass, and integrating that shadow element, that it's always going to plague you.
Yeah.
You know, and the
Well,
same shit with
talking about it right now. This is part of it. For
Yeah.
me. I thought about not saying anything, but I'm like, fuck it. Why not?
Yeah.
It's what's on my mind. You know.
Well, to me, my childhood abuse is part of that. My relationship with my father is part of that, and then all that shit that I spun my gears doing until I was able to actually process that shit. Now that I'm able to talk about it and put it on wear it on my shoulder or wear it on my sleeve, now it doesn't plague me as much anymore. And now what once was bad trips that I thought were plagued by, you know, demons or whatever, these are learning experiences. It's me examining this side of me. It's like, wow, I did that fucked up thing and I hate myself for it. No, I did that other thing and that just makes me want to puke. Yeah, these were all what you did to try to heal pain.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, and just let it
The
come
cosmic
and let it
fucking
go.
balance, man.
Yeah,
Cosmic balance.
And-
This is
and-
what you've done to other people. You
Well,
know what I mean?
yes.
Or other whatever beings.
Yeah.
Whatever it is you're battling with.
Well, people are non-human people.
There you go. Yes, yeah.
And I want to puke because of a lot of it, but then I also say, but you know what? Forgiveness is important too. You know what I mean? And some people, I don't know, it's a tough one.
Well, because it's hard for me to, like, well, I can forgive myself, but at the same time, well, shouldn't I be punished though? Like, if I'm going to dictate when I'm forgiven, you know, like, have I been punished enough yet? Have I done the work I need to do yet? And what's fucked is, again, nobody else is putting this on me. It's still just me. But
how long do I need to
don't
sit
know.
in the lap of that furious deity, be torn apart?
Yeah, man.
You know, how long do I need to tear myself apart before I'm actually allowed to say, okay, can I treat myself with some compassion now?
Well, I guess
Because-
this is that fucked up path I'm on of destruction and rebuilding. Maybe this is the rebuild start of it. You know,
Yeah.
This is the year I needed, and it's, you know, baby steps, and now I can fucking
and
start doing it. You know.
sort of like the going to the gym. Am I lifting enough? Am I doing
Yeah,
it
man.
hard enough? I need to be better. I need to be stronger. I need more discipline. Or do I finally just need to say, I'm allowed to just be me and to love me for who I am. And that's been a huge fucking one for me. And a lot of it had to do with me stepping away from the people, environments that were really not good for me, and being a little bit more of a loner, hanging out with people that support who I really am versus who I'm supposed to be in everybody else's eyes, and finding who I actually am outside of all that shit, you know? Am I the tattoo guy? Am I the, I don't know, the angry, furious guy? Am I the martial arts guy? Am I the boss guy? Am I the boyfriend guy, the dad guy? Who really, beyond all of these different labels, am I? And do I need to beat the shit out of myself for all of this stuff that I put on top of myself, you know? Like, I made tons of mistakes. I was violent, I was hypersexual, sometimes combining the two. I was accused of things that I didn't think I did, but like consent accusations. But then I had to sit down and be present in that ugliness and like, holy fuck, I might have had a twisted view on whether I was innocent there or not, and reach out to people and say, holy fuck, if I made a mistake, I want you to know I'm sorry. There's also the way I treat people, bullying people, all that stuff, which to me was a consequences of what happened to me, and I just didn't even realize it, you know what I mean? But sitting in that ugliness and coming out the other side has been, I guess, part of my sadhana, my program, and going through that dark night of the soul. So with you and your brother, or you and your dad, you know, like, the more you talk about it, the more you know that you're in a safe, non-judgmental environment to do that. Fuck, that's what needs to happen, you know?
Yeah.
We used to have elders.
Man.
We used to have elders that you could do that with, or the medicine men, or fucking therapists, or whatever you want to call them, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Some other motherfucker who had a view on this that could help you through it.
Yeah, and like, you know, B and I, we're starting up we're calling it a ritual arts center, and we're doing meditation, we're doing that kind of stuff, hypnotherapy. She's doing the Reiki.
Some sacrifices.
A little bit, yep. And well, you know, and
Well, you know.
well, it depends on your definition of sacrifice. You know, every time I go to the gym, I'm sacrificing something for my higher good,
Yeah,
right?
fair
And
enough,
yeah, it depends on your definitions. So traditionally, medicine men, well, some of them had been through uglier shit, or just as ugly. They were the reformed, the saints were reformed hardcore sinners, and because they could come from saying, hey man, I doubt there's anything you're going to put on the table that's really going to gross me out, because I've been there and done that, and I'm fucking gross. You know? And that's a safe space to be that blubbering mess. You know what I mean? And because I'll be that blubbering mess, and I think that's it. And that's the left-hand path, that fucking fast, hard, confrontational angle, versus we're going to do Reiki, we're going to align your chakras, there might be some tears, but this is safe, you know, as opposed to bleh, you puke it out, right? You know,
It's quicker. Yeah.
well, the ayahuasca ceremony, right?
That's a bullet train ride.
You know, that's and the shamans have done it. They've been through it too. So anything you're bringing to the table, depending on how big your demons are, right?
Yeah.
You're right.
Fuck.
Like, you think about those guys that cross that line into becoming fucking full-on monsters. Their demons won.
Yeah, right.
They manifested in reality to that non-consensual monstrous element, right?
Yeah,
you know.
right. They grew horns and fangs.
Yeah, they became
That's
the predator, right?
Yeah.
My daughter asked me once if monsters were real, and I told her, well, imagine living in the jungle, and you have a fire to keep you safe, but at any given time, you can walk 50 feet into that jungle. What are you going to run into? Something with fangs, something with claws, something that's going to tear you apart. Is that not a monster? Well, now we have names for them. We figured them out. You know, that's an alligator, that's a shark, that's a panther. But before that, it was just what lied in the dark.
Yeah.
Right?
It's all teeth and tails out there, folks.
So I'm thinking that we're going to find in psychology and religion what our internal monsters are. You know what I mean? We're going to put names to it. Maybe science is doing it. Maybe psychology is doing it. Maybe neuroscience is going to figure it out. And then we're going to be able to say, no, that's just this part of us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we don't let it...
That's kind of what I was thinking, too, when you were talking about, like, which guy am I? Am I a dad? Am I a tattoo guy? Whatever. And I think it's just that moment. What do you need to be right then? Right? Because you don't always got to be that guy all the time, whatever it is. We're never one thing. And I know I get caught up in my own self, like my view of myself, my self-ego, of like, well, this is the guy I am, and I'm this all the time. And it's like, well, no, I can be whatever the fuck I want when I want to, and I just have to decide if it's the right thing for that situation.
Super valid. Because we're right here, right now. And the person we choose to be in the moment is a consequence of our past, karma, right? You know, and what we choose to do in the moment creates our future, karma. So if we're present in the moment and we stay present in the moment, we get to choose at any second who we're going to be. Which of those archetypal ideas we are going to embody the best? And am I going to be compassionate? Am I going to be furious? Am I going to be the slave of my past, or am I going to be the creator of my future? And I think that's the pivotal point of spirituality, you know, is understanding which God do you want to be?
Right? And we all get to be God here on earth. Which, do you want to be a benevolent one, or do you want to be a vengeful one?
And I guess when you get to that point, when you realize that, like, maybe there is no sky daddy that's going to punish you, you know, what's the consequences you want to live with, right? You know, like, do you want to become the tyrant?
Yeah.
Or do you want to be the martyr?
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
Do you
and
feel
I
you
think
need to be nailed to a cross?
I think you can't get to the tyrant level without empathy, right? And if you're on the journey and you're honest with yourself, you're going to develop empathy, right? If you're living all these different lives, you should be able to, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people that have lack of empathy also have a lack of life experience. You know what I mean? Like, if you actually are in all these different communities and understand how people live, you become empathetic to their cause. Well, unless you're a
Ideally.
sociopath.
That's the thing.
Well, unless you're one of those. But again, I don't know. Is that something built or broken?
So, right?
Right, you create one, or did you break
Nature or
somebody and this is
nurture?
what you get?
Exactly. Do you create? Well, if you broke it, I don't think they're sociopaths. I think that their empathy has just been crushed into such a little black coal that it's going to take a lot of nurturing for it to come out again.
Yeah.
Now, I think sociopaths, by the true sense of and I think neuroscience is going to show us, but I think sociopaths in the true sense of the word are born that way. It's a chemical, it's a brain operating neural pathways, just bypass empathy, bypass consequence, and go straight to self-oriented.
I was just thinking of one example, and I mean, this is going to be keep fucking bringing back to it, but it's what's happening tomorrow. Like, even Donald Trump, like, just seeing
Yes,
like
it's
how
perfect.
his father had treated him as he was growing up, and his brothers and sisters and stuff, and it was like you only fed the negative aspects of him, whatever was gross and loud and boorish and going to take over. Those were the things that were fed, so that's what grew and that's what nurtured with him. And unfortunately, there were all these sociopathic fucking tendencies, right? So I don't know if that's the environment you're in and this is how you're going to be, or if it's like, well, no, because I've only ever fed the shitty parts of you, that's what you became, a big pile of your shitty parts.
I was afraid, like, I was a sociopath for a long time because I had, like, I was numb, you know, because I was heavily traumatized. Yeah. So I think by my standards, not by everybody's standards,
Right.
but by my standards.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel empathy, and I didn't feel love, and I didn't feel compassion. I'm like, fuck them. You know, that's basically it.
Yeah.
And the environments I was in largely encouraged that.
Yeah.
So I think about now, because I've come through my dark night of the soul, or whatever you want to call it, my nervous breakdowns. I think if I think somebody's a sociopath, but then suddenly I can see them cry, they're touching emotion. You know what I mean? And I think about Donald Trump. What would that fucker ever cry about in empathy other than his own self-interest?
Right.
And that's a very telling thing. If that guy will never cry unless to get out of trouble.
Right.
Look, I'm a human too.
Right.
Or
to manipulate, right?
I've lost something. Oh, what am I going to do?
Yeah. How
you
does
know?
it affect me?
Yeah, if you don't have empathy and you can't cry because something is fucking horrible and you feel for their suffering, the chances are you're a fucking sociopath, or your empathy has been crushed to a point where you're so far removed from it, right?
Yeah, you've lived a life where empathy has no value.
Yeah.
Because if it had value to you, you would have developed it.
Well, and that's what they say about the modern capitalist system, where those people that get to those positions of upper echelon elite have to be able and willing to easily fuck people over to survive, to compartmentalize any fucking compassion. So you need the profile for a serial killer and the profile for a Fortune 500 CEO are almost mirrored. You need to be able to not
Yeah,
give a fuck.
Zuckerberg, we know what the fuck you're up to.
I wonder about the tech companies. No, okay. So the
Yeah,
tech billionaires
right.
are a different animal. The tech billionaires are just young fucking dudes that came up with some new technology, and suddenly they're just boom. Here's a whole shitload of money.
And some of them
they're like,
weren't even
"Man,
like
what do
new
I do now?"
technology. Some of them were literally just like doot 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 doot. Oh, I'm a billionaire. How'd that happen? You know,
Yeah. So-
I just got into this thing at the right time.
So I think that's why I find the tech billionaires really interesting compared to that old money fucking
Yeah.
millionaires or billionaires,
Well,
where
yeah.
they're like,
It almost becomes like a new world order if they decide they want
well,
to.
and they can really change things
Yeah.
because they're still idealistic. They're still like young.
Yeah.
They're still
well,
like,
and they
well,
understand how the technology in this world works, which is going to be like the biggest you want to control the masses, you got to control technology, you got to control social media, and these old boys are trying to do that, but they don't understand it. They're paying these guys to do it, and what's weird is,
And that the young guys resent the old boys for trying
Wow.
to. You're fucking with
and
people.
a lot of them though, here's where it gets weird though too, because a lot of them are fucking incels. A lot of them are guys that still have like very backwards fucking views. A lot of them are very misogynistic. That was a big thing. I can't remember which tech company it was, but they were just like, there was a company-wide memo just being like, you know what, this place is pretty fucking sexist, honestly. Like,
I can
because
see
again,
that.
picture a bunch of fucking dude bros in their fucking 20s all of a sudden that became
But they're
billionaires.
barely dude bros. They're nerds.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Well,
They're not
like,
hockey
in
guys.
my head, if you're going to a fucking college in the U.S., you're a dude, bro. You might still be a nerd, but you're probably some sort of dude, bro.
You're the helper. You're not Van Wilder. You're his little
Yeah,
homie.
yeah, fair enough.
Right, you're
But then they got the fucking money, so they can be Van Wilder if they
Well,
want.
and then their priorities are all screwed. But I don't think they'll ever be Epstein. You know what I mean? They might be Epstein light, but well,
Well,
you
I
never
guess
know.
right, because it depends, right?
I
Because
think
again,
they'd be
is Epstein just pure evil, or was that control and manipulation?
Yeah.
Hey, was that him just fucking being a monster, or was that him using monstrous purposes to do something else that well, you want to control industry, and you want to control governments, and you want to control monarchies.
Well, yeah. There's a really good show I just watched 2-3 days ago called Capital in the 21st Century on Netflix, and I've got a whole bunch of notes that I won't get through. But yeah, but
We'll save it for
basically,
another day.
one of the quotes was, "The elite are adept at reproducing their privilege through economic, social, and political capital." So they want to keep their little power,
Yeah.
and what is it? 1% of the world right now owns 70% of the global assets in the world. So 1% owns 70%. In the 1960s, it was 5% owning 50%. Now it's 1% owning 70%. And of all the global assets in the world, and 2/3 of the people in the world will die with 0 assets to their name. So that meaning, okay, I might have something to give to my kids. You know what I mean? Whether it's, the house, maybe the land, or my kid. And so that puts me in the 33 percentile. That's going to
Hey?
have something.
Hey?
And I know that I'm nothing compared to these oligarchs.
And that 35%, let's say, hey, from you to that number one top, there's a little bit of a gap.
Yeah, and that's what's
little bit.
crazy. Yeah, it's an astronomical gap. And so...
Well, and most of that wealth is just manipulated, inflated wealth. Because I was trying to picture another time in human history where we would have similar numbers, where you got 1% of the population owning 70% of the wealth.
Never been that.
Well, and I think the only other times you could have been closest to a time when all wealth was based on how many jewels you could hoard, how much rice you could hoard, how much gold you could hoard. So there would have been empires. There have been Mongols that are fucking run shit or
Aristocracies.
whatever, right? Yeah. There'd have been stuff where maybe the numbers were close to that, but at least it was something real and tangible that if you stormed the castle gates, you could take back and give to the people. This shit, it don't matter. It's imaginary. It's all made up.
Well, there is, yeah, that's absolutely true. Like this documentary, they said something that reminded me of you right off the bat, and they talked about how important it was to be the first son, because you got the inheritance from your father, and you were also tasked with taking care of your family. So the eldest son got the inheritance, and the inheritance was an obsession. So often first sons were off by second sons or killed by second sons, and there was this intrigue because they wanted that inheritance.
Well, and that would have been probably the only way you could even maintain that status level, let alone get ahead, was to already start out there. You can't be the second or third brother who's like, well, good luck. We'll see you on the road, bud. I got to build my own fucking empire now?
Well, they were taken care of. You know what I mean? And if you had a daughter, and you only had a daughter, you would try to marry her to another wealthy first son, so these two empires would be merged. And it was like this weird little in-group, and they didn't really want to ever loosen those. It was all about like self-protection and preservation of the aristocracy, that elite caste. And then I guess in the French Revolution, what ended up happening is they killed the aristocracy, and they said, okay, we're going to have a egalitarian society of brotherhood. But then basically the bankers took over. They created a political system run by bankers, which is
they just shifted the horde.
Yes, it was a new aristocracy.
We were
with
hoarding it up over here, now we're hoarding it over there.
this weird colonial mentality. It's like, okay, so we're gonna expand. The biggest colonialists in Europe being France and England for a very long time, and the new colonies that they set up made them so much money, they were able to buy land elsewhere. They didn't have to do it by force. They could just use the economic,
Or just fund a war in a different country that someone else was going to go fight for you. You didn't have a
100%.
dog in the fight. You could just pay for it.
Those
And if you
underground
could, try and
things.
figure out how to finance both sides, like they did during the Civil War.
But a lot of times those are private money lenders, the bankers.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Non-denominational bankers is what I will say. It's not one people at all. So right now we're living in a time when these new billionaires, old billionaires, can avoid paying taxes because they've set up offshore tax havens, shell companies, and all of this other stuff. And places like Bermuda, you can have a numbered company. You're a Bermuda company. That's where all your profits go. And they're taxing. Well, we don't tax people here. That's why you're bringing your money here. You're going to buy land here. You're going to buy these businesses here, and we're not going to tax you. It's a tax haven. So they're talking about options to, I guess, stop offshore tax havens for the ultra rich. By putting sanctions in place against the territories that enable tax evasion.
You're taking all of the profits out of one area and hiding them in a different area.
People on the bottom echelon are starving. They've got drug addiction. They don't have a social safety net. But the upper elite are just taking the money that they're making off of that nation. Like, let's say Apple, like the example they had in the documentary. Let's say Apple made $50 billion in a year. Well, they take all of the taxes that they would be paying on, let's say, the $10 billion that they sold to Canada, right? And they're taking the taxes, and we're a company out of Bermuda, or we're a company out of some other like low tax shelter fucking territory,
Seychelles or some fucking shit.
Yeah. And so what they're saying is, ideally, if you made $10 billion off of Canada, you pay $10 billion of taxes. If you're a multinational corporation, you can operate in 100 different countries. So if you're operating in 100 different countries,
that's where our money's going.
Exactly. Which ones do I have to pay the least tax? Which one's the lowest labor force? Which one is the lowest or the highest selling?
But this is just an example of the free market capitalist system, right? Do what's best for you. But then they continue to lie to you by saying it benefits everybody through trickle down, but it does not trickle down if you take it out of the country.
Well, they said that when communism showed its real flaws, it's a failed system. Glasnost happened and the Berlin Wall fell. Then they really started pushing, what did they call it? A glorification of private property, a glorification of superficial materialism and advertising. And on top of that, they really pushed for a deregulation of markets. So there was no regulation on how much money you could make, on top of, all of a sudden you got tax havens. So you can make as much money you want, and you can weasel your way out of paying back into the culture you're milking.
Yep.
So that's ridiculous, and they worry about that.
And again, by you mean 1% of the population in whatever that area is.
And
they might get as much as high as 5%, maybe depending on the country, I guess, and they've got a little bit more of a wealth dispersal. But I mean, ultimately, it's 1 out of 100 people that are going to be able to take charge and control that system. And if there's 10 of them, then there's 1,000 of you making them fucking that money.
And the guy on the street is getting taxed to the point where he's working and he's poor.
Yep.
You can't afford
and
a place
taxed
to
through the ways
live.
the governments tax you, like parking tickets and insurance and all the other little nitpicky things that can keep you just barely afloat.
Oh yeah, you need a cell phone in order to be connected, but that's going to cost you. And then you need your monthly, you need your gas to run your vehicle, because you can't have a free vehicle. You need gas to heat your house, because you can't have you can't heat your own house with wood burning stoves, probably against some legislation somewhere. You need electricity, you need all of it, and we're just basically milked. We end up being livestock, and that's one of my biggest things, one of my biggest issues right now. And who isn't livestock? The people at the top echelon that are just farming all of us, and that's what really kills me. We touched on it last.
Being farm, folks.
Fucking yeah, just jump the fence, go feral.
Yep.
Become the grow your tusks out and be the feral hogs.
be the wild boar of your area.
We talked about it a little bit. King Leopold in the Free Congo state, or in the Congo, he's the Belgian king, and for 100 years they thought Leopold was the builder king because he built Belgium. He built all these great architecture all around. He's the builder king, because nobody ever wanted to talk about all the people he killed and took their hands for not giving him enough rubber. Because during the Industrial Revolution, everybody needed rubber. You needed rubber for your machines, you needed rubber for tires, you needed rubber for everything. And where are they getting that? Africa. King Leopold went in and he fucking turn an entire country into his private slave plantation, you know, and he put some brutal motherfuckers in charge that if you aren't making your quota, we're taking your hand, we're taking your family's hand. He employed a bunch of like bloodthirsty fucking sociopath mercenaries that they weren't allowed to hunt, so they need to account for every bullet that they fucking shot. So when they would shoot let's say an animal, they would just go take the hand of a local person and say, no, I shot a person and here's the hand. It was fucking ridiculous. Look up King Leopold II and what he did for what he did in the Congo. And now, when we talk about the Congolese warlords and they roll into villages chopping people's hands off, where do you think they fucking got that tactic? You know,
this is the pendulum swing to those actions.
Oh, and these fucking assholes.
They learned it 2 generations ago when it was being done to their grandparents and shit.
I listen to these white nationalist assholes go off about this. Well, look at fucking Ethiopia. Look at the fucking Africa and how they treat these fucking warlords, child soldiers. They're taking people's hands. Where do you think they learned it?
Yeah, they weren't doing that before.
Yeah, before. They had a perfectly functional eco-society where they
I'm sure there was still conflict and shit, but it wasn't genocide. It wasn't.
No, it was a paradise.
Yeah.
Nothing was wrong.
Yeah. Right.
No,
just like our conversations. We edited this one already, right?
So, but that's just it. These people are like, well, look at the atrocity that these people are doing down in Africa. Where did they learn those atrocities? You know what I mean? Where did any traumatized people learn the tactics of self-medication or the violence?
And none of this excuses any of it. It just gives you a reason, though. You know, because then that's a lot of people. Well, so what if that happened? Well, now you know, though. Like that's why these fucking things happen.
That's the truth part of truth and reconciliation,
right? You have to admit that and then give it value, and then otherwise, how do you ever heal from it?
You can't have truth and reconciliation if you go your entire life avoiding the truth. If you don't know what happened, you will never be able to reconcile what happened.
Yep.
And that goes for any fucking trauma. You know what I mean? Like, that any trauma.
Yeah. And even I find for myself, that's the power of saying shit out loud too. You know, the more I can just talk it out and through it. Like again, just thinking about Dad Matthew these last week or 2 weeks, even because it's been kind of building up. When I'm driving, I'll say something out loud that I've been thinking that I just never said. You know what I mean? And it, you know, about whether or not I'm going to see them again or whatever the fuck it is. It helps me work through it and make it real, you know, and go, you know what? Okay, this is my existence now. This is what it is. And it's not easy or better, but it will be. It will one day. I just got to fucking keep doing the work.
Well, dude, I'm just going to fucking be an honest friend here. And like some of the shit that you've put on the table for me that you had to fucking go through as a child makes me want to tear up for you. Like, dude, it's crazy. It's crazy. And I love you.
I love you too, man. You know, very much.
Yeah. I'm getting all misty for you.
Right.
See, I'm not a sociopath. Ask around.
It turns out we're not sociopaths.
No. Like, yeah. And when I hear shit like that's happened to people, I'm surprised they didn't turn out worse.
Well, and what's fucked to me is, you know what, and that's not the first time I've heard that. You know, like family members and stuff, and even like, even after Dad died, I remember running into somebody who knew him from back in the day, and he was like, "Oh, I can't believe your dad died. That's crazy." He's like, "But fuck, was he hard on you boys?"
Yeah.
He's like,
You could have been a monster.
It's you know what I mean, and it's because I seen one.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I seen one. I didn't want to be that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that thing.
So this is therapy moments. The amount of fucking spiritual fortitude a guy has to do to maintain his fucking boundaries and only do the little fucking hiccups that you ran into, as opposed to the huge ones that you could have. You could have been a school shooter. You could have been whatever, right? You know, but you didn't fucking do it.
That all three of us didn't end up in jail at least one point is like kind of mind-boggling to me. You know what I mean? And not that we were bad guys. It's just shit fucking how it was. You know what I mean? Like there was lots of things that could have definitely been like, no, you're kind of derailed now for the rest of your fucking life because of this thing. Even the car accidents and stuff. You know, like as older, those are, you know, everybody gets into car accidents, but I mean it can change your fucking life dramatically getting into one, especially if it's a rollover.
See, you know, I look at me growing up with my circumstances and the things that happened to me and the places I almost went to and the places I did go to. You know what I mean? There was lots of self-medicating, some stupid shit, and that's me. With my set, I can't even imagine guys in the hood that have had to endure the stuff.
Well, and
that
was always my perspective. I always saw someone who had it worse.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
You had it easy.
Well, no, yeah, I guess, yeah, and I have to fucking just. It's hard for me to give that value a lot of times too, because then I'm like, well, yeah, but I went through it. You know what I mean? I'm fine, aren't I?
You're coming out the other side.
Yeah.
And I think unpacking this for us is very important. Yeah. And I see lots of dudes involved in various subcultures we're involved in, whether it's a motorcycle scene or the tattoo scene or, you know, punk rock scene, that aren't unpacking it. And I
Yeah.
see them spinning their gears, and I see them going to real toxic fucking places, and they don't even know how toxic it is, because that's what a man is, or whatever it is.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think our conversations are good.
It helps me.
Yeah, yeah.
This is my fucking therapy now. And like even talking to my brother, he was saying he was talking to one of the guys he works with on, I think it was Sunday, and this guy's dad had just died that day. Like, so, you know, it was, geez, that's fucking heavy. He's like, yeah, I know I lost my dad to cancer last year too. And the guy's like, wait, what? Your dad died last year also? And he's like, oh yeah, because Marshall hadn't brought it up at work. You know, because he's not sharing everything. But I mean, Matthew was hard to get around because, I mean, it's just of what it was. And then he's like, yeah, and even my wife was diagnosed with a degenerative brain disease that she's probably never going to recover from, and this is how her life's going to be, all in the same year. You know, and that's not even everything. You know what I mean? That's just the three big ones, and that's just for him. You know, and then I got my divorce last year. You know, like, which, I mean, that never fucking is easy for anybody. So, yeah, it's hard to just fucking be okay with it, you know, like just be like, oh, this fucking sucks and that's fine, you know, like, but you got to kind of do it, I guess. And I keep talking to other people about it and reaching out about it, because the more I keep it to myself, the harder it is on me. And even if I just dump my purse out, everybody's very supportive. Nobody's ever given me shit. And I mean, every once in a while,
about that shit. No one wants to hear about
some
that.
people get competitive though, right? You start talking about your shit, and then it's like, well, yeah, but this happened to me, and then, well, that happened, and it's like, okay, are we just sharing here, or has this become a contest all of a sudden? You know, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to have the who had a shittier existence contest. It's not fun. Who wins? Oh, I won!
Who wins?
Yay!
Who wins?
Yeah, I'm gonna go home and not sleep.
Well, yeah. Why do we have to have a gauge on how much we hurt? You know,
Yeah.
or how much like it affected us? You know, as long as we're unpacking it and trying to be a better human fucking being. You know, so I know people that have had just rough experiences with manipulative parents.
Yeah,
And it hit them like a fucking ton of bricks. You know what I mean? They've got as much unpacking for me or as you, but it's just the way.
well,
that
and it's not everybody was kicked and punched and
Yeah.
screamed at. You know, there's different shits that breaks you at a different. And again, physically, it didn't really break me physically. It broke me emotionally. It broke me
Yes.
mentally. It broke me spiritually. You know, and not broken totally, but in cracks. Things snapped off. You know what I mean? It didn't destroy me.
hardened edges.
Well, sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and then you got a process of softening that you have to go
Right.
through, right? Or,
Yeah.
or being torn apart and put back together, depending on how hardcore it is.
Yeah.
Now, I think the people that their entire empathy and compassion got shit kicked out of them, they're the ones that need to be broken and rebuilt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're at the point where you're nearly a monster, or you are a monster as a result of what's fucking happened to you, yeah, you're gonna have a lot of realignment or reconfiguration that's gonna have to happen. Now,
You know what's crazy is, and that shit would look very toxic to most other people that were never that level of monster. Hey, they go, why are you treating them so poorly? It's like, well, because this is what's gonna work.
Yep.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Some
yeah,
people-
you don't spank your kids. You absolutely should never beat your kids. Sometimes a fucking smack on the ass gets the point across as to whether or not you're gonna lose that hand if you do that. Not because I'm gonna take it. Karma will, because you're not doing it right.
Well, what's the other one? It's like when I get really furious at my dog, I grab him by the scruff and I have a scruff of his neck, and I have a conversation. And my partner, she's such a hippie. She's like, "That was so aggressive." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing my best not to fucking punch him in the face. You don't know.
This
You
was a
don't."
step in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm really doing good.
And a
Real
lot of
doing
times
good.
the shit is it's to their benefit, you know, like you're concerned for the animal, so you want to fucking treat it in a way that you're like, are you getting the point of what I'm trying to say here, you know?
But that's what we think is.
Yeah, I know
doing
it's
well.
not right.
Yeah,
it's not right.
right.
It's my intention though is to, like, you know, again, I was thinking about that interaction with that woman at the grocery store last week, you know, and I was just thinking about that more the other day. I'm like, fuck, even that was another toxic version of myself, where it's like you use a little bit of a bully fucking technique, because again, I was never concerned about her saying or doing shit to me, so I could say what I want to her, which is what she was doing to this other one, and yeah, it kind of worked out a bit. So I
what are you gonna do?
sort of stood up for somebody for a second, right? But now she's gonna just go, and her story will be, this guy was just a dickhead to me for no reason.
That's
and,
a good point.
You know, like, and for what? Who did I teach a lesson to? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Is she gonna be better now? Is she gonna think twice, or is she just gonna think that shit and still keep it to herself then? Which, I mean, is sort of better, I guess, but you're still a shitty person. I didn't fix that.
Yeah,
And
it's
if
a
anything,
tough
I look
one.
like an
It's a
asshole to
real
somebody
tough
else, probably. Somebody 2 rows down, maybe only see me giving her shit, and is like, what the fuck's that guy going on about? Fucking perspective, man.
I posted it online, and I'm like, this is the dichotomy of the left right now, where everybody's equal, hierarchies are not valid, and you can't judge me for whoever I want to be. But at the same time, if you disagree with me, I'm going to fucking judge you and condemn you because you're a garbage person.
Right.
So which is it? You know,
Don't you
hierarchies.
dare goddamn judge me, because you were going to get judged so fucking harshly if you
Right?
do.
Hierarchies are invalid, but I'm superior to you morally.
Well, and even that,
you
even
know?
that same line where it's like, and I want to be seen as the way I want to be seen. Okay, but isn't that so that other people judge you in that manner? Because people are gonna gauge you how they gauge you, and you're gonna be upset if they don't judge you in the way that you think is correct. But I mean, again, that's been on us our entire existence, is to make sure that if we don't want people to think of us as the way we look from 2 blocks away, well, then we have to act accordingly when we're 2 feet away.
Yeah,
And I think that's the difference, because a lot of these people, like you even say, like,
That's karma.
Because some of these
Consequences
examples
of
you've used
actions.
of like how people talk on the internet and shit, right? You know, you're a Nazi if you don't believe with me and all that
Mm-hmm.
kind of fucking stuff. It's easy when you're detached, right? But then when you get to know somebody and you know the nuance and you know where they're coming from, usually you can't say that same thing, right? But it's like, why don't we just treat everybody like that? Because actually, well, I'm sure you know him also. He's just going through some shit like that right now on the internet, where he made some comment about J.K. Rowling, and it was negative to her about her being transphobic, and some people that were friends with him, that one at one point thought she was trans and then decided that she wasn't going to transition, and even made a point to him to be like, well, you know, like sometimes it's just, you know, you just think that for a while, and he's like, cool, but that was just your journey, you know, like other people I'm sure are not having that same journey. Well, then it turns into a whole thing
he's a transphobe
because he'd used the term gulag, but in reference to J.K. Rowling performing in one. And that got turned around somehow that, well, then he said this person should be in a gulag. And because that they thought that they were trans and then they weren't. And then they judged him. And now it's turned into this whole thing. And people are showing up at his work and giving him dirties and
Fuck
and
off,
like
really?
and boycotting the place and like shit like that. And I mean, it's on a small scale. But I mean, still, it's like you have to have the intention of you want to see that person as that for you to get that far.
That's bullying.
Well, it's fucking rights, right? And again, well, yeah, but I'm bullying a Nazi, and if you know
Oh,
who I'm
is he
talking
a
about,
Nazi?
this is the least Nazi motherfucker I couldn't picture a less Nazi person than this guy.
Mm-hmm.
This is the guy who is consistently, and he's not a trans person, but he is consistently, like when there's trans,
Been an ally.
He's fucking right. He's as ally as you can get. And
He's not ally enough.
there you go.
He's
right?
not sucking somebody's
You're not
dick.
enough, right?
Like,
And then
that's
again,
just
that's
it.
these extremists on every fucking side you can possibly be on. If you're an extremist of something, you're probably goddamn fucking wrong. And I get getting that far because you get so frustrated and you're like, I just want to see fucking change, and it's not changing quick enough or in the ways I want, and I have to go really far to make this happen now. But then you get all that negative shit with it, right? When you become the social justice warrior, when you become the righteous force bringing this knowledge to the land, you are the fucking imperialist Christians
when
now.
you become the censor.
Yeah, man.
There's a group I follow, and they're the guys that got me back into working out. They're the guys that they resonated a lot, and they were called Operation Werewolf. They started in the black metal scene, and they were like really into militant strength culture, and like kind of like preparing people for a post-apocalyptic society, you know, like kind of Mad Maxing everybody, you know, like, and they're like a militant strength cult with a K, KVLT cult, and they were kind of like Viking dudes. You could tell their whole steez was kind of like a biker Viking kind of thing, and one of these guys in this group, well, they're also very almost borderline satanic, but not really, but like they're very anti-Christian. So one of these guys went and burned a church, right? Because he's just like black
Jesus
metal.
Christ,
They're
yeah.
black metal.
That's pretty metal.
Well, the church was a black church. And these guys were mostly white guys and lifted weights with motorcycles. So they got called a hate group.
Sure.
So now they've
That's a
been...
bit of a hate crime.
Well, yeah, it is a hate crime. It's a
And he's
religious
the stupidest
hate
asshole
crime.
in the world if you didn't know whose church it was you were burning down.
Well, they just burn a church, right? You know, fuck them, they're Christians. And that is it's a hate crime. It's a religious
Yeah,
hate
no,
crime,
for
but
sure.
it's not a racial hate
Yeah.
crime, right?
Yeah,
So,
no, you doubled down on your hate crimes there, bud.
so recently, Operation Werewolf has been deplatformed. They've been kicked off YouTube,
Oh,
kicked
sure.
off fucking
Yep.
Facebook, kicked off Instagram.
They've been attached to that, yeah.
But they've been very openly like, fuck you if you're a racial segregationist. We're not ethnic fetishists. We
Yeah.
are just a strength cult that is not friendly.
Mm-hmm.
They value like they value aggression. They
Yeah.
value toxic masculinity basically, but it's politically incorrect right now. So now they're underground. They're operating on like through websites, through Telegram, through different apps like encoded apps.
And like, if that isn't the exact fucking shit we're talking about this whole time of these groups that have no concept of the other that they're going to judge. Those you couldn't find two. I can just picture these two people in these worlds. This Viking fucking metal
Black
cult,
metal dude.
and then again your pink goatee gentleman on the other side. And they couldn't be fucking further apart. And it's like, no, what you're doing is negative and toxic. So now you're canceled. And it's like,
yeah, you're negative and toxic. You're a worm.
Yeah, you've never even exactly. You've never even been in this world. Both of you need a little bit of the other, maybe. You know, like.
Well, 100%. Where are you meeting in the middle?
Yeah.
These guys over here.
Well, wasn't that
like,
the fucking point of balance? Isn't that the point of equality? Is to meet in the middle?
Yes.
Not to again. This is the pendulum when we talk about so many times where it's just like, nope. Now I'm gonna fucking hammer you. I'm in that position and I can do it.
Technically, these guys would be defined as fascists.
Yeah.
They kind of believe that might makes right. You know, they're militant. And these guys over here are the communists because everybody's equal and you don't have a right to
And you always remember how soft communism, right? As you've seen all those communist regimes that were very thoughtful and careful. You remember the Soviet Union was a bit of a utopia.
The postmodern communists, the gay space communism, you know, where everybody can be whatever the fuck they want and reality doesn't count. You know,
does it though?
Yeah, right. You know, I can be whatever the fuck I want. And you don't have a right to judge me. I can call myself whatever I want. You don't have a right to judge me, and you're an oppressive influence that needs to be canceled if you do. As opposed to these people are like, fuck you, I'll beat you up.
Yeah, it's very basic. It's a very basic on this side.
So yeah, and it's a really, where's the middle ground?
Yeah,
like where these fascists really need to get in touch with some emotion, and these fucking logicless, like rationalists or irrational fucking left-wing leaning people really need to step into reality a bit, and meet somewhere in the middle, which I'd like to hope that I'm working towards. You know what I mean? And I'd like to think I am an amalgamation of a bit more. I do value some strength culture, but obviously our conversation, like emotions are important. Fucking the balance and understanding everybody, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I'm a radical centrist.
Yeah.
I'm
radically down the middle.
I aggressively want to drag both people into the fucking center. I don't want them to. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
That's kind of it.
Maybe that's how centrists start to view themselves instead of like just being, no, I'm just in the middle of everything. It's like,
everybody's
I
enemy.
also am working to bring everyone closer. You know what I mean? Like closer to this middle fucking. Yeah, I'm everybody's enemy, right? Right? Yeah.
You can make it a.
Well, once again, if all the extremists in the world don't fucking like me, I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
If you get them all to hate you, then you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, so that was all the stuff that I had written down. Everybody I don't like is Hitler.
I want to talk just a tiny little bit about the Alex Jones being on Rogan podcast recently.
Oh yeah, I heard that he got back on there. I didn't.
Yeah, and it was with one of my favorite guys, Tim Dillon. It was like the third guy in the room who didn't get to say much because fucking Alex Jones is just going wild, and it was entertaining, right? But I mean, just something I noticed about him was that he'll take, because again, they were kind of fact checking him during the conversation, you know, and he's like, "Why are you gonna be fact checking me?" And Joe Rogan's like, "Well, because this gives you validity. When we can fact check you, and then it shows that you're actually right, or you're right 80% of it, or whatever.
Are on point.
Exactly. Yeah. We can continue to have this conversation then, and people are gonna be on board. But if we can't do that, and then you start, because he conflates so many things, right? Like a great example of it is when he was talking about the water in the Florida Everglades making the frogs gay. It was a big thing. They're making the frogs gay. They're making the frogs gay.
Holy
and what it was heightened estrogen levels in the water that were making frogs hermaphrodite. And so it wasn't the.
So he just needs to get his language.
See, that's what I'm saying, right? So it's like, and then you exactly right. And then not to say that isn't a problem, because like if there's high levels of estrogen, what else is going on? What else? Yeah. How else is this thing fucking with the ecosystem? But then you have to discredit him when he starts out with frogs. They're turning the frogs gay, and then you're like, well, okay, they're not doing that, are they? And you look into it. Well, no, they're not. This is what's happening, and yeah, there's truth to that, and you should be concerned. But he's always got his point of view that he's there to point out and like present with his little facts, right? So he'll take whatever it is and then conflate a fucking reason to it behind it, you know, like.
So he comes to a conclusion
that Bill and Melinda Gates want to start all these fucking vaccines because they want to put chips into you, but not just to help, but it's because they want to control you. You know, he always puts this intent on it. That's like, okay, well, where's that written? Where's the intent written? Where has Bill and Melinda Gates ever come out and said that or written that or done a dissertation, anything like that? Nothing, never. You can never find that. Well, why else would they do it? That's the only reason you never put a microchip in somebody is to control their brain. And while we're at it, frog's gay. You know, like it annoys me because it's like he's somebody you should. And I mean, he even himself, like. He's like, I'm entertainment, but you should believe what I say, you know? And you're like, because look at how many times I'm right. Look, I'm right about this, and I'm right about that, and right about the other thing. And he was one of the guys who was talking about Epstein's Island before a lot of mainstream media was, too, because there was rumors out there.
David Icke is
like,
perfect.
Exactly. Fucking exactly. But again, these guys, when a lot of them want to make their money off being a personality, then they get upset when you don't take them seriously. But then when you do take them seriously on shit like Sandy Hook, and then he goes, oh, no, I was just misunderstood. No, I never said that. No, you doxed people, and people ended up having to move out of their communities after their children were shot because
that they weren't
shit
real.
you said.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Shit you put out there. And that was a real problem for him. So as soon as something like that happens, well, then how can you believe him when he's saying this other shit, right? Or why should you? And anyways, I just thought that was interesting because he's an annoying guy like that, right? Because you want to just discredit him, and then you hear what he says, and you go, okay, well, there's some fucking truth to that, but you're making that equal this. Eddie Bravo does the same thing, right? There's these rocks. It's like the ancient aliens guys. There's these rocks we can't understand how they got here. Well, then it has to be aliens.
That's logical
the
joke.
aliens, Giorgio Tsoukalos, right? That's that fucking guy. But this is the Alex Jones version of it, or the fucking Eddie Bravo version of it, or whatever.
Well, a few facts are a great way to ice a lie.
Fucking right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Right. 2 hours. Okay.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's yeah. All you need is a few facts, and again, this is the president's been very popular doing this as well, where he'll take one tiny bit of truth to something,
Yes.
and then get on the same thing and go, well, this equals this and that equals that, and if you believe this, then you have to believe that. There's all this.
What is that? That's a... Man, it's creating a conclusion without your scientific process.
Yep.
So you're supposed to do your scientific process where you got a theory, or you got a hypothesis and a theory. Then you do your experiments through facts. You could come to a conclusion. Now, if you just say, I've got a few facts and I'm gonna sell you my hypothesis as a conclusion, it's poor. It's bad science. It's bad science.
Well, and these guys will even cherry pick through 30 different fucking things to find the 3 that sort of align with what they want, and that's enough.
I can say this because I've done a lot of research to try and unpack what happened to me during my psychotic episodes or my nervous breakdowns. And I could easily say, I'm just crazy. Or, it was a spiritual experience. I was talking to ghosts. And I could jump on any new age kind of hoo-ha, any book that's like unsourced or whack job that says, this guy right here says it, so therefore it's true. But I prefer to balance it and to go in with a cautious attitude of, okay, so what's the best evidence? Is it a neurological problem? Was it drug abuse? Was it a legitimate spiritual experience? Is it exclusively psychological, or was something otherworldly actually happening? And I study psychology. I study philosophy. I study religion. I study neuroscience. I'm not like Joe neuroscientist, but I
Joe neuroscientist.
Yeah, Joe neuroscientist. You know him. But I'm interested in this stuff to find out what my experience was. And I think I'm coming up with a nicely balanced theory. Now, I'm going to wait for the best evidence to tell me what was the most likely situation, but I don't even talk about my real theories. I don't, because I don't want to present them as a conclusion yet. They're only theories. Yeah. Now, a guy
and you don't have a narrative to sell. You don't have products to sell also. Again, that's the other issue with these guys. They want to monetize this shit. They want to
make a living.
They want to create a whole get them clicks. It doesn't matter. And then again, I'm news, I'm not news. It's this is real news and that's fake news, and I'm going to tell you both. And
I'd be fucking. It sounds horrible, but it'd be easy to start a cult. I could
That's
just
why so many
write what
dumb
my
people have
experience
done
was.
it.
Yeah, Jim Jones.
There's not a lot of you'll find a lot of them are like, no, they remember Mensa, very high IQ level. Some of them, but there lots of them are just like,
Manson.
I'm sort of charismatic.
Well, right, and then that's just it, and this is the truth. I've got the lock on the truth because this is my experience. Your meditation experience. You could codify it, say, we're all one, this is the deal, everything fucking disappears, we're all one unit, and we're going to go sell that. I'm going to write a book, do seminars, you're all going to come out, and I'm going to tell you how reality is. And that's what David Icke does, and that's what fucking Alex Jones does, and that's what all these whack jobs. So you have some facts, and it's the lizard people. Yeah. And you know what? Fucking William Pierce, one of those Nazi writers, and it's the Jews. And Alex Jones, and it's the Democrats.
Yeah.
And everybody's got
the globalist elites.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And there is rich, and there are elites, and there is an echelon. Now, quit trying to come to the conclusion that you know exactly who the fuck they are. You know what I mean? Or even that there's a global conspiracy as opposed to anything more than just wanting to be rich. Being rich as fuck and living your best life, at the expense of everybody else. That doesn't matter, though, because it's for you and yours. And that's, I think, the big issue, is that selfish aspect. I don't think there's a global cabal, a conspiracy of guys sitting around a fucking, table, other than the CIA.
Well, I kind of do, though, honestly, like your Bilderberg groups and shit like that. Like there is some of that going on. But again, Alex Jones and those guys do talk about this sort of thing. Like, I do think there is some
The
legitimate
Bohemian Grove and-
exactly.
yeah.
But then again, they'll attach this extra shit onto it. You know,
Well, okay, yeah.
This means that they were doing
They'll-
sacrifice. Well, were they though? Well, it's an effigy, but is it though? Well, I don't know. I think it was probably a child, and that's what they're doing there. Then,
But you don't need to go any further than that. But why are you doing it?
yeah.
Hey
Yes.
guys, why are you doing that weirdo thing?
Yes.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, why are you on Epstein's, what's it called, his list there?
And that's the other funny thing about that this whole specific scenario right here too, the Epstein, the Alex Joneses, is that they think that, with QAnon that Trump's going to be their savior, and it's like, I don't know how you guys can look at this subjectively and get to that level and then still go, oh, and this guy's the good guy, by the way.
Yeah, the guy with all the photos of him hanging out, being
It doesn't
a fucking
make any
douche
sense.
who's like got a long history of.
And then
being
it's, oh no, well,
openly-
he's the guy on the inside. He's the guy who's going to bring it down. And I'm like, well,
Yeah, that guy who was
You
talking
believe what you
about
fucking
going
want, I
into
guess.
his own modeling agency and his own pageants so he could cruise on underage girls. That's the savior. That's
like,
the savior.
26, I think it is, legitimate accusations of sexual assault or misconduct.
So you know, and like, I guess that's the deal. Like, I've got theories, I've got opinions, I've got ethics and morals, and I'm also the first one to tell you I was a fucking scumbag, and I did stupid shit. Maybe not a scumbag. I'm not fucking Trump's level, but I did some dumb levels. I did some stupid things that I'll probably have to account for.
Yeah,
and
yours didn't destroy entire industries though, or fucking
yeah. And I'm not trying to be
wipe out
fucking
every small
Jesus
business
up
in the
here.
area by not paying your fucking bills.
I was a junkie. I was a skinhead. I was a slut.
You're just showing off now.
Woohoo! Look at me go! Yeah, fucking. But that's just me, and I'm willing to own that, as opposed to a guy like Trump or a guy like, who knows, half of the fucking political apparatus in Washington.
Oh, say Clinton as well. You think Bill Clinton's any fucking better? You
Yeah,
know what
yeah.
I mean? This guy couldn't keep his dick in his pants during the job. You know what I mean?
What was he doing on the downside?
Oh,
right?
fucking rates. What shit wasn't he getting caught for? And he's one of the guys who, of the flight logs, one of the most trips on fucking Epstein's
seriously?
plane.
Yeah.
Yes, Bill Clinton, man. So again, and what's fucked to me is that every time a person, like, you speak negatively of one side, they're like, well, you must love the other side then. It's like, no, let's just have that conversation too then. It's just, I think one is being disproportionately disgusting right now. That's the one I have to talk about.
Something else that I think needs to be pointed out is just because somebody went to Epstein's Island didn't mean that all they were doing was fucking children. They probably no for real. They probably had a ton of models that showed up that got flown in. They like I don't doubt that it was like a sex and debauchery party.
Yeah.
But don't go thinking just because they showed up to Epstein's Island they automatically were sticking their dick in children. I imagine that shit happened for those people that wanted that thing.
There was probably a setup story, because if you're not going to get somebody right off the bat with, hey, you want to come up to my island and fuck a kid, and they're like, wait, what? But they're gonna get you out there for parties and all that other shit, and then eventually get you into those situations so they can get their compromise on you or whatever, right?
Yeah, well, and that's
get your leverage.
Yeah, and then you do favors.
Yep,
Yeah,
right.
and lobbying or kickbacks.
But I would argue with Clinton though. It's a tough one to make that when it's like 24 logs on this fucking plane.
He was there a lot.
I don't know if I've
Something
been on
was going
24
on down
different
there.
planes. You know what I mean? Let alone one owned by the same guy who also had an island he was flying
The guy
into.
kept going to Thailand.
Yeah.
You know that guy.
Just love the food. Don't you love that
Love
food?
Thai food, kickboxing, Buddhist monks tattooing. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the fucking times we're living in. So yeah, we got to prepare for Thunderdome, physically and emotionally, because the election's tomorrow, I believe,
Yep.
and we'll see how this fucking week goes.
Yeah.
It's again, I feel like I've in my life in general, I've had a weird energy the last couple of weeks, and I mean, I think I know a lot of the reason for it, but this fucking week feels like it's gonna be rough, and yeah. So again, I think I might just take the week off work and
Just
stay home and do some
watch
fucking
the news.
Well, and get some good routine in my life for things I do want to do, and then try and carry that back into when I'm working, and that's more difficult for me to do.
Well, what I'm worried about
It's a
in the
good week for
States,
that.
and I'm going to take it there, is like, let's say Trump gets elected. I don't think the liberals will do shit. You know what? I think maybe some marginalized people in urban areas might riot. As a result, like, fuck this noise. But all of these, like, reactionary leftists, I don't think are going to do shit.
Get in the streets with
They're
machine
just
guns,
talking.
right? Yeah.
They're just talking. Now, if Biden gets elected,
Yeah.
I think shit's going to hit the fan.
Yeah,
Where,
and that's day one we're talking about. Whereas with, again, if Trump, maybe you don't have the initial militias in the streets fucking tearing shit down, it's gonna get worse though. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna get more authoritarian, and especially if the Republicans can maintain the Senate, which doesn't really look like the case. Honestly, it looks like lots of these fucking seats are gonna get flipped, and a bunch of these senators who have been riding shit for years are all of a sudden like, oh, now they're being challenged. So there's a chance that you might have two branches of the government that are both run by the Democrats, and then if that's the case, then you could actually impeach that guy. They could actually get him out because they've already impeached him once. It just wasn't removed because one side didn't agree to it. So, and there's more than enough things that you can still do. I mean, if fucking Clinton got impeached for the shit he did, Trump's definitely got, 50 fucking different impeachable offenses?
Yes,
you can find them, right? It's just you need to have that one side that's willing to fucking, even if you're of the president's side, do the right thing, you know? But they didn't want to because they were going to lose their influence, to lose their control.
So if Trump gets in, and if there's riots in the street, this is going to give carte blanche for emergency measures to enact a police state, to crack down on people
So that's where it
hard,
gets to be a problem.
on top of the pandemic. So that's just going to be a combination of things. And it's weird because all these pro-freedom anti-maskers are going to eat it up. They're a bunch of bootlickers. So they're going to be like, I need my freedom till Trump says I don't need it no more. And then if he doesn't, these fucking whack jobs are going to hit the streets with their pickup trucks and their flags and their shotguns.
Have you seen what the fuck's going on already?
With the Biden bus?
Running that fucking bus off the road?
Or trying to,
And hitting that SUV? Like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
You know, this is what Nazis did. They tried to keep people away from the polls. They were in the streets using violent tactics to try and stop people. They blocked off a New Jersey, a New Jersey bridge so people couldn't get to the early voting. A whole march of Trumpers got and they blocked off a bridge to deny access to the voting to the polls. How is that not illegal?
And this is the fucking law and order people. Follow the rules. If you can't fill out the fucking paperwork, you shouldn't be here.
They're fascists.
Yep.
That's what it is.
The rules only work for them when they work for them.
They're going to use terrorism when it's in their favor, and they're going to deride terrorism when it's against them. Or call anything that's against them terrorism while using terror tactics. That's fascism, you know. And any rational, centrist, or left-leaning individual that aren't radical are just watching in terror.
I think there's even a lot of rational, right-leaning people that are watching in terror. Going like, look, I like Christian values. I like paying low taxes. I like keeping the fucking government out of my bullshit. I don't care for all the kids in cages. I don't really like the way that you're letting this pandemic run wild all over the fucking country and killing a bunch of people. You know, like there's still
grabbing pussies is not a Christian ethic.
I don't even know. I don't even. You're right.
Like I think a rational Christian individual would say this guy does not represent what I believe.
But then they make that argument, well, he's a flawed man. Sure, and that was before he was president, though.
Yeah. Right.
When it's like that's how you get the job, though, is based on the things you did before. You know. But that's fine. You know what?
Priests fuck kids. What? You know, like no. Anyways, all right.
What a fun time to be alive. We're gonna get to see it all. So maybe this won't be happening next week. Maybe we'll be mid Fallout.
Yeah, we're going to be putting armor on our vehicles.
I'll be driving down to get my mom.
The
Smuggle
motor
Tom
pool,
in the back,
the
mother, if you're
Bastards
listening.
Motor Brigade was going to be,
Yeah, you don't want us. Hey, a lot of showing up late, dicks out. It's not going to be. We're
going
help.
to be armoring shit and recruiting all of our MMA buddies.
Oh
and
no, fuck. We'll just be
foods.
making it look good. Hey, we'll have it all airbrushed up real good. Nothing will run right. People are constantly. This thing doesn't have a carburetor, but for some reason I'm fucking with a carburetor. You know what I mean? Like that's you got us involved. That's what the best.
I guess we have different visions.
Yeah, you good at slamming hot dogs and shotgun and beers. You guys need somebody to do that.
Mad Max,
ride a fucking mini bike.
I got leather masks. You know, I got leather masks, gas masks. I got some spikes, football uniforms.
Yeah,
all set up. We're set up. You know, I got some baseball bats with saw blades sewn through.
Of course you do.
Yeah,
and why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. It'll look great on the back. Do you have a sidecar on your motorcycle?
No, but I got a buddy.
Oh, okay. All right.
Lee's got one on his. So
all right, then
we
that's
team up.
That
would look pretty cool.
There, you know,
exactly.
Cages.
Give him a fucking machine gun.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Is this it?
Pretty close. Well, it's weird. I saw this one thing, and it said that everybody seems to think that the end times is going to look like Mad Max when it's really going to look like Viggo Morris, The Road, where everybody's just trying to survive, man.
Yeah, man.
Like, run away from strangers, because strangers are danger.
Yep. Yeah, fucking stranger danger. I've never seen more dangerous strangers. Or strangerous dangers.
And on that note.
Yep. Well, thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, we'll try and get Dave in here soon.
Yeah, or somebody, for fuck's sakes.
Yeah, it's just us shooting the shit for hours.
It's been months we've been down here by ourselves.
Dude, I did the math. We're at 24 fucking episodes of an hour and a half each. That's like 30 hours at least of conversation between us. Holy fuck. And we're not running dry. That's what scares me.
Let's hope so, yeah. Let us know if we are, folks. Yeah, all right.
Get some new material, fucko.
Yeah. Come up with some better fucking stories.
Peace out.
Love you, dude.
Yeah.
Bye.